the perfect home on the planet. This video is purely for entertainment and does not infringe on copyrights or laws. The rights to the novel and image belong to the original author. We do not claim ownership. Don't like waiting and want to listen to this fanfic in full now? Subscribe to our Patreon, where you'll find the best fanfics. Chapter 301 Huangji River. The two of them stepped out of the main building. Perhaps it was a psychological effect, or perhaps it was because it was late at night, but the air in the courtyard felt a little cooler than when the two of them were admiring the stars after dinner. Feiyu looked up. The newly installed protective shield did not affect her vision. She saw that the stars had disappeared, and the moon was gone. Only a few large clouds remained, with some drifting light occasionally emanating from behind them. The protective shield did not completely block out the sounds from outside. A low whistling sound swirled around, giving Feiyu the illusion that it was restless in the courtyard, looking for an exit. Tannen, look, her grip tightened. Across the courtyard was her family's back house. From the position of the back door of the main building, they could see behind the eaves the tall treetops in the woods on the other side of the Huangji River. Against the backdrop of the night sky, they looked like a black mass connected together, swaying wildly. Ah, she cried softly, my treehouse. Some time ago, she had painstakingly made a ladder and installed the baseboard. Shuang Tannen tapped his fingers. It's okay, we'll do it later, it could only be done this way. Feiyu sighed, but her tone was quite optimistic. Maybe it hasn't blown away. Feiyu, I'll go check the water level. I'll notify you when it exceeds the warning level, Feiyu said quickly. I know, I'm just going to the kitchen window to observe the bridge up close. I'll go too. Shuang Tannen glanced at her, without letting go of his hand. Let's go. The two of them walked quickly through the courtyard, opened the kitchen, and went straight to the back window. Without the shining stars, the Huangji River completely merged into the darkness. Feiyu's eyes looked over and looked around based on the approximate distance she remembered. Her voice was a little tense. There seemed to be some accumulated black shadows on the river. A low whistling sound swirled. Don't be afraid, Shuang Tannen held Feiyu's hand tightly, his eyes darting back and forth. Before he could make out anything, he heard a low whistling sound suddenly tighten and rise, followed by a creaking sound. His eyes flickered, and out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of a pillar-like black shadow in midair, rumbling and crashing into the river with a loud bang. Feiyu couldn't help but jump in surprise, and immediately felt Shuang Tannen exert a little force and squeeze her wrist. The trees are down, and those are still trees. His voice quickly calmed down. Feiyu naturally thought of it. She calmed down and continued to observe. The floating bridge and the fallen trees were mixed together, making it impossible to recognize them. Fortunately, the signal of the floating bridge was still in her home access control system. Looking out the window at the trees on the other side, the view was no clearer than from the courtyard. Instead, the patches of inky blackness that were closer and closer made her feel more oppressive. She held herself tightly, staring intently outside, only hearing the crackling of branches in the wind. There was not even a trace of her half-finished tree house to be found. Feiyu had more pressing concerns. Tannen, the tide will rise tonight. In the summer, the eastern Cable Delta welcomed a wave of high tides at noon. The sea pushed through the delta's mouth, and the tides flowed along the network of rivers all the way into the Wao Plain. The main section of the Huangji River was already high by the time Feiyu and Shuang Tannen fell asleep. Shuang Tannen checked the water level data and comforted her. It's okay now, the fallen tree fell into the water. Feiyu frowned. It's my fault. Last time, I piled all the debris and weeds I cleared from the woods by the river. Now they may have all turned over in the river. Last time, I didn't ask the robot to clean it up in time. Shuang Tannen looked at the location of the river, his eyes serious. He took the responsibility and comforted her. Maybe it's okay. I'll go out and take a look. Out of the shield? I'll go with you, you stay here. Maybe I need something and you can give it to me. Shuang Tannen just turned around when Feiyu grabbed his wrist. She looked at him with a gleaming look. I'll go with you. Think about what tools you want to get before you go. Let's go. Shuang Tannen pulled her with his backhand, as if saying, hold on to me, it's windy outside. The back door of the kitchen opened, and the emergency exit of the protective shield opened. The wind immediately blew Feiyu's long hair and covered her eyes. Shuang Tannen subconsciously turned his body to the side and half-hugged her. Feiyu, you go in. Feiyu raised her hand to push the hair that was in the way to her forehead. Let's go quickly and come back quickly. Shuang Tannen glanced at her. and quickly grabbed one of her hands more tightly. The wind blew sideways, and it seemed to swirl between the protective shield and the woods. He stared at the front closely, calculating the position of the bank of the Huangji River. The two people's communicators suddenly rang at the same time. Deputy Director Shuang, Deputy Director Yan, you are out of the shield. What's the situation? On the projection screen, not only Qi Changgong, but also Cao and Fei, all had solemn expressions. Feiyu paused, the wind whipping her hair around her head again. She pushed it back in annoyance and heard Shuang Tian'en reply, the wind's picking up here, and the river's rising. Let's go outside and check. We know the wind and tide aren't strong enough to threaten your house, and you have a protective shield. I suggest you return to your house immediately. Tian'en, look. Feiyu anxiously raised her hand and pointed forward. The virtual image on the projection screen obscured her vision. She narrowed her eyes, glancing past Qi Changgong, Cao and Fei, and the back wall of their new office, and stared straight at the river. Shuang Tian'en paused his conversation, staring intently, his brow furrowed. What's going on? Qi Changgong asked immediately, staring at Feiyu's face. A lot of trees have fallen into the water, blocking the river, Shuang Tian'en replied hastily, pulling Feiyu forward quickly. Qi Changgong and Cao and Fei exchanged a glance, then spoke sternly again, Deputy Commander Shuang, stop. First, you can leave the ward to observe, but you must switch to real-time field mission recording mode to facilitate reporting to us. Second, it's best if you do this alone. At least leave Deputy Commander Yan in the house for now to ensure her safety. Shuang Tian'en was stunned, glancing at the projection screen. Before he could finish his words, Feiyu interrupted, I'm going, Deputy Commander Yan. Qi Changgong's face darkened. I'll also open my full mission record to you. Feiyu interrupted hastily. Don't waste time, we're only a few steps away. She shook Shuang Tian'en's hand. Come on. Tian'en, let's walk carefully. Qi Changgong watched the woman on the screen, her hair flying, cautiously approaching the river, a subtle frown forming on his brow. The occasional snapping of branches amidst the wind became clearer as he reached the river's edge. There was also the sound of swirling water. Feiyu, stop here, Shuang Tian'en said, holding her tightly as he scanned the dark stretch of river ahead. The several bundles of weeds and shrubs he'd cut during the last wood clearing seemed to have all fallen into the river. A huge pile of debris gathered on the surface, along with a single log, leaning against a bank from the opposite bank. Perhaps too heavy, or perhaps it was stuck. It lay motionless for a long time, unmoved by the current. The treetops spread out across their lawn. We need to do some testing to see if this, combined with the tide data, will cause an overflow, Feiyu said worriedly. You do the testing. Stand still. Don't follow me, Tian'en, Feiyu called out urgently. What are you doing? Move that tree. Keep an eye on the other side. If another tree falls, alert me. Feiyu paused at this, glancing up at the dark sky across the river. Shuang Tian'en, however, was already running towards shore, against the wind. Chapter 322 Split Screens. Tian'en, you have to be careful, Feiyu shouted, and heard a hum in the wind. After a while, she saw Shuang Tian'en squatting next to the dark pile of branches on the shore. Her eyes were fixed on his outline, and at the same time, she called up the environmental safety data and quickly fitted it. Shuang Tian'en grabbed the branch, tried to lift it, and quickly changed his position, walked to the shoreline closer, and touched the main branch. He poured strength into his body, shouted secretly, and lifted the trunk up. The branches and leaves rustled and scratched his arms, but it was difficult to move. Just as he was struggling, a shout came from behind. Tian'en, I'm here to help you. He turned his head and said anxiously, what are you doing here? Be careful not to slip into the river. Deputy Director Shuang, tell your wife to go in quickly. The projection screen also moved in front of him and turned on. Qi Changgong's cheeks tightened, and he almost got angry. Enter the protective shield immediately. There is no need for you to cause additional man-made damage. Before he finished speaking, Feiyu told him quickly, Tian'en, the fitting result says that the water will flood our lawn in 35 minutes, and the system will give us an alarm in 20 minutes. The fitting result of Chief Cao is the same, Cao and Fei said. Deputy Director Shuang, we will send someone to pick you up. You two go back to the house together and come back after the tide goes out at dawn. It will be safer that way. After everyone finished speaking, Shuang Tian'en's surroundings finally quieted down, leaving only the sound of wind and water. In the darkness, The shadows of Qi Changgong and Xiao Wenfei glowed, their faces either serious or soothing. Feiyu squatted beside him, tugging at his sleeve, and they all stared at him. Deputy Director Shuang, Qi Changgong spoke again. "This is my house," Feiyu quickly interrupted. She was furious. Her house was about to flood, and Qi Changgong was everywhere trying to stop it. "We'll definitely accept the responsibility. But while we're waiting, we can use this time to do something. If it's really too dangerous, we won't do it." In the darkness, Shang Tannen met her gaze and nodded, then spoke. "Feiyu, this tree is difficult to move. I'll try again. You go back to the house first." Feiyu knew that Shang Tannen and she were on the same page. It was not easy for them to build this new house bit by bit. Knowing that the water would come up, how could they just do nothing and let it flood? Even though the house had a protective shield to protect it from even the most common geological disasters, and the interior wouldn't likely be flooded, wasn't a backyard and lawn part of her home? Seeing them submerged in water would be heartbreaking for her. "It's going to be hard to move like this. I think we need to cut down the treetops. I'll go get the tools." She stood up and immediately turned back. "Don't move now. Wait until I come back, Feiyu," Shang Tannen called out. Seeing her run so quickly, sprinting into the darkness, he glanced worriedly before giving a helpless smile to the projection screen and reassuring her. "Commander Qi, Commander Xiao, we'll be careful. Deputy Commander Shuang, your section of the river isn't just blocked by this tree, there are also many branches and debris," Xiao Wenfei warned. Qi Changgong didn't say anything. Shang Tannen saw that his gaze was slightly off-angle, and knew he must be monitoring Feiyu's whereabouts, so he felt somewhat reassured. "Yet, I'll try. If it doesn't work, forget it," he replied to Xiao Wenfei, exerting force with his hands and gritting his teeth as he dragged the waterway again. "If it can be cleared, that'll be much better." The tree didn't budge. Xiao Wenfei knew, of course, that clearing the river would greatly reduce the possibility of flooding. He was also concerned about another impact. The new settlement of Wao had just been built, and people hadn't moved in yet. If this first family stayed there for a night and it flooded, word would spread that it would undermine everyone's confidence. So, judging the conditions to be not particularly dangerous, he didn't apply the security regulations to directly restrict Shang Tannen's movements. "Brother, our people will be here in 30 minutes. They have tools and will be able to help when the time comes. Take it easy. Safety is the priority, thanks," Shang Tannen smiled. The wind whistled in his ears. He turned to look at his large house, which was still dark. He couldn't help but ask, "Where's Feiyu's room?" "Tell Feiyu that the big tools are in the tool room. She's picking," Qi Changgong spat out. Shang Tannen paused for a moment, glanced around, then lowered his head to activate the shield management system. Xiao Wenfei was about to joke that secretly locking Deputy Secretary Yan in the shield was useless. As the female head of the household, Deputy Secretary Yan had the same permissions and could still escape from the inside. When he saw the transmitted data, he swallowed his words. Shang Tannen selected the complete light blocking mode for both inside and outside, then lit up the room where Feiyu was. Feiyu was startled by the sudden brightness and retracted her hand. "Your husband turned it on." She glanced at the projection screen in front of her. Well, both of them had habitual expressionless expressions. Qi Changgong looked at her. A tacit rule of guard work is that the leader will focus on the more important or weaker individuals among the targets, while his deputy partner will focus on those who are in a better situation or have greater strength. Of the two people in Shang Tannen and Yan Feiyu's family, he, as the chief of defense of the Wao New settlement, mainly monitors Yan Feiyu. She is relatively weak, but at the same time, she is also more important. Feiyu didn't care that at this time, in full recording mode for field missions, her every move was under Qi Changgong's sight. She trusted Shang Tannen and did not check the sudden change in the lighting system. The brightness gave her greater convenience in movement. She quickly opened the shelves and searched for the tools she wanted. No mistake, one song, one post, one content, 1/6, one book, one bar. These were all managed by Shang Tannen, and she was not very familiar with them, because most of them were airborne tools. Every time she came to the new house to take care of it, she decided the work content, and Shang Tannen was responsible for assembling the borrowed robots with suitable vehicles. This was the room he went in and out the most. Next door was her future home studio, which contained some artificial tools. But unfortunately, her main job was always a bit busy, and recently she was busy leveling the land and building a new house. The small shops in the Mulala market were about to close. Her scene-making business had basically never been officially launched, so naturally, she had developed very few tools. She was waiting for the completion of the new house so that she could combine the small shop with a home studio and start a grand plan. Now, the next door is still deserted and useless. Qi Changgong saw her wandering among the storage shelves with her hair disheveled, sometimes taking out a plank knife, sometimes putting it down, sometimes returning to take it out again. She had absolutely no clue. After a while, he saw her take out a round metal stick, holding the stick, and continued to run around between the shelves. In a short while, without taking anything, she rushed out of the room and flashed into the next door. His surveillance screen then dimmed, and he could only see her outline, which was very agile. She reached a corner of the room, and suddenly stopped running, with her hands on her head. Qi Changgong hated the job of supervising Yan Feiyu the most. If he supervised her well, he would not say anything to praise her, and if he supervised her badly, it would be like an old account that had not been settled. But it was his duty and he could not tolerate any carelessness. He looked closely and could not help but be shocked and vomit blood. She was doing her hair. The water was about to flood into her house, and her husband was still waiting in the dark wind. This young lady actually took the time to dress up. She was really used to being exquisite. He glanced at Shuang Tannen, who looked like a collie on the split screen next to him, and then turned back. After tying her hair, the young lady grabbed a soft rope and ran back to her original room. She put the machete and metal stick on the ground, knelt on one leg, and tied the short handle of the machete and the metal stick with a rope. Qi Changgong saw that she was making a long machete. Qi Changgong looked at her nimble arm movements, then looked at the vicious and strenuous expression on her face, and continued to watch, but in his heart he remembered the terrifying scene of her staring at the insect. Chapter 303 A Crossbar. Feiyu picked up the makeshift machete and swung it a few times. The rope was tied securely, and the blade didn't fall off. Without further delay, she grabbed the long-handled machete and ran out of the tool room, turned to the kitchen, went out the back door, and got out of the shelter. "Tannen, I made a knife," the voice came with a wind. Shuang Tannen straightened up. "Come over here, be careful, there's water coming up here." "Water coming up," Feiyu exclaimed. As she approached Shuang Tannen, she heard a rustling sound under her boots, as if a thin layer of water was squeezing through the grass roots. She immediately pulled Shuang Tannen. "Come here quickly," she added anxiously. "Waiting for them to come won't work." Xiao Wenfei listened, wanting to touch his nose, and said with concern, "Brother, speed up, retreat if it doesn't work." Shuang Tannen took Feiyu's sword, looked at it, and pulled her behind him. "Go further away." He didn't have time to say more. He had great trust in Feiyu's craftsmanship. He raised his sword and chopped down the side branches of the tree canopy. It was sharp enough. Feiyu stared at Shuang Tannen's spot, mentally evaluating the blade she had chosen in a hurry. When he stood up, he quickly dragged the severed branch away. Shuang Tannen turned to the other side, and she followed him like a shadow, standing slightly apart. When he cut off another one, she would immediately drag him away. The sound of water squeaking under their feet, both of them were panting, and the hot steam was blown away by the wind as soon as it left their lips. They moved quickly around the treetops, and it didn't take too much time to cut off the entire treetop. "Feiyu, take the knife back," Shuang Tannen gave the instructions, turned around and waded to the water's edge again, bent down and hugged the end of the crossbeam. Feiyu held the big knife, looked at it for 5 or 6 seconds, put the knife where it was, and ran over. "I'll help you." "What are you doing here?" Shuang Tannen shouted anxiously. "Go back." He deserved to be scolded, and he should have been scolded long ago. He might as well be scolded to death. Qi Changgong was furious. What was wrong with interfering? He glanced at Xiao Wenfei next to him, and his face also changed color. They haven't arrived yet. What if someone falls into the water here? This family didn't even build a bank, taking advantage of the natural downward slope of the grassy slope, extending all the way into the water. It was extremely difficult to identify in the dead of night, and Qi Changgong didn't dare miss a thing, terrified that someone would step on it and drown. The remote care and monitoring of residents under the security regulations implemented in the new settlements were no longer as precise and standardized as the community environment in the Shilin urban area. They were implementing a principle of gradual relaxation, and would eventually transition to a model where residents could self-regulate their homes. The newly established WoW District Security Corps was more focused on assisting in the supervision of geological topography, astronomical climate, and residential order. Moreover, the security forces were also preparing to improve the transmission channels across the entire WoW plane. Therefore, what Qi Changgong saw on the surveillance screen at this moment was entirely due to the panoramic record of the activities of the two merchants. He stared at the waterline by the river, feeling anxious. What kind of house was built? Just a piece of grass connected to the waterfront. What beauty was there in that? Feiyu hugged the tree's base with both hands, the river water seeping through her fingers. Unfazed, she raised an eyebrow and asked Shuang Tanin clearly, which direction should we push together? Shuang Tanin realized he couldn't let her go any further, so he quickly lowered his voice. Up. I think there's a branch stuck in the embankment. Feiyu nodded, and they locked eyes. 1, 2, 3, up, Shuang Tanin shouted sharply. Feiyu heeded the command, gritted her teeth, and pushed. No, no. I'll switch to your side and try pushing into the river. You go up, I'll do it alone. Why are you talking so much nonsense? Feiyu quickly switched positions. Push. This time, the two tried, but still couldn't budge the tree even a bit. Deputy Director Shuang, Deputy Director Yan, Qi Changgong couldn't help but speak. Can you feel where the branch is? Feiyu stared at Shuang Tanin, her voice so fast and urgent that she cut Qi Changgong off. Shuang Tanin squatted down and ran his arm along the trunk. Feiyu clung to him tightly, with nowhere to pull, so she grabbed the fabric of Shuang Tanin's arm. You two retreat immediately. Qi Changgong could no longer bear it. Try again. Feiyu glared at the projection screen. Shuang Tanin turned around, and she immediately shifted her gaze and looked at him intently. I touched it. There is a root, not thick, stuck in the soil. Bring me the knife, I'll break it. Feiyu agreed and immediately went to get the knife. Deputy Director Shuang, we suggest that you retreat, Cao Wenfei interrupted. Try again. Shuang Tanin was breathing heavily, his heels immersed in the water, but he didn't dare to move, for fear of forgetting the position he just touched. If you don't leave, your wife, Deputy Director Yan, won't leave either. Don't take risks, Cao Wenfei said again. Shuang Tanin raised his eyes and looked at Feiyu's place. He waited for Feiyu to come over, stretched out his arm, and said softly, Feiyu, you go into the house and wait first. Feiyu turned the knife aside and said, get out of the way, I'll do it. I'm more accurate than you in this kind of thing, I'll do it. Shuang Tanin grabbed the handle of the knife and looked at Feiyu intently. The two stood in a standoff for a moment. Then you go first. Feiyu let go. If it doesn't work, I'll do it later. Go back to a higher place and watch. Feiyu turned around very decisively, took 5 steps and turned back, and saw that Shuang Tanin had crouched down, and the light of the blade flashed past him. She opened her mouth and the wind poured into her mouth. She simply closed her mouth tightly, swallowing the wind and the word of caution. She just opened her eyes as wide as possible and locked Shuang Tanin tightly. After a moment, she suddenly had an idea and whispered very quietly, don't say anything. You might scare Tanin right now. Qi Changgong's face tightened, and he was furious. He was frightened to death. How could he have such an easy time as a new official? Tonight was the first night of the newly formed WoW Division Guard Regiment's trial deployment to the Qi garrison. They had originally intended to see the night view of the WoW plane. If these two caused any casualties, he would settle the score later. Qi Changgong suppressed his anxiety and watched Shuang Tanin's progress. He saw that part of his feet was completely submerged in water. The water, blocked by branches in the middle of the river, swirled and gurgled, but it was silent when it reached Shuang Tanin's feet. He knew this was a critical moment. He would give them one last chance, one last chance. If Shuang Tanin failed, he would not care about their property. He would immediately apply the emergency protection regulations, deprive them of their freedom of movement, and force them into the house. Feiyu saw it off. Shuang Tanin turned his head and laughed while panting. Give me the knife. Feiyu immediately ran over and scanned his whole body through the darkness. How are you? Are you hurt? No. Shuang Tanin took a breath and waved his hand. Go up, go up. I'm going to push. Wait for me to come together. Feiyu quickly lifted the knife and put it in a dry place. When she turned around, she couldn't help but stop. Shuang Tanin had already pushed. I'm coming. She ran back with the wind. Don't talk nonsense. She squatted next to Shuang Tanin and took the initiative. 1, 2, 3, push. The muffled sound of plop close to the water surface was so pleasant. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 304, Grab Hand. Inspector Feiyu stretched out her arms, straining to push the log toward the center of the water, but Shuang Tanan grasped her shoulder firmly. Let's go back. She leaned over Shuang Tanan, her eyes following the log as it drifted diagonally, carried by the tide. It didn't drift away with the current as she had hoped. The dark river seemed wider than she had usually imagined. The bundles of twigs and weeds that had fallen into the water were more scattered, but the vast majority of them surrounded the log, still blocking the center of the river. This won't work, she said anxiously. They're all mixed up, I know. Will a bridge work? Feiyu's mind raced. Unfold the bridge, and we can stand in the middle and use something to poke them apart. No, the bridge isn't high enough. There's a good chance they'll become trapped beneath it. Then what should we do? Deputy Director Shuang, Deputy Director Yan, Qi Changgong said gravely. Abandon all your ideas immediately. Retreat in sight and wait for our men to arrive. The two paused, staring at each other, their eyebrows raised in unison, an idea dawning. We use a car. Yes, Shuang Tanan took Feizai's hand. Let's go back first. You can't do anything else except stay in the house, Qi Changgong shouted. Our off-road vehicle has semi-armored capabilities. Shuang Tanan raised his eyes. At this time, he was half wet, his boots were dotted with mud, and his hair was messy, but he didn't care at all. He spoke quickly and steadily. Commander Qi, I will try one last time. Use the vehicle's grab to lift the largest piece of wood in those branches. The river will be open. No, you guys should do less and move less. The off-road vehicle can drive in such winds. Let me rescue her one more time, Shuang Tanan said firmly. I'll leave Feizai in the house. Feizai glared at him. I won't keep her. I'll worry about her staying down there. She faced the projection screen decisively. We still have a chance to rescue her. Just think of us as driving away now. We're just making another round to the river to clean up during the evacuation. Xiao Wenfei looked at Qi Changgong. Hey, this twisted logic seems to make some sense. Just when they were silent, Feiyu pulled Shuang Tanan. Hurry. The two went into the house, closed the kitchen, and ran across the courtyard. Shuang Tanan was operating the garage, and he said again without hope, You stay, I own half of the house, Feiyu simply said angrily. Shuang Tanan looked at her, said nothing, pulled her up and continued to run. Feiyu admired Shuang Tanan for this. When faced with major events, he made quick choices and why discussed trivial matters endlessly. The two ran through the main building and ran towards the gate. The car had slowly slid to the door and raised the wing doors. Who? Feiyu panted. Me. Yeah, the conversation ended, and the door was about to be opened. Feiyu went to the left and Shuang Tanan went to the right, without a trace of redundant communication. The two jumped into the car neatly, one side at a time. The car immediately lowered the wing doors. Shuang Tanan sat in the driver's seat, and Feiyu sat in the passenger seat. The car shot out like an arrow, turned a corner, and circled behind their house. When the lights shone down, Feiyu's face was serious. Fortunately, she had persisted on this trip. The situation on the river surface was clearly visible in the lights. The 6 large bundles of branches that the robot had tied during the last forest clearing were no longer at the edge of the woods. They had all rolled into the water. The robot had tied them very firmly with diligence, but now less than half of them were floating around, and more than half were still tied in bundles in the middle of the river, pressed down by the crossbar, blocking the river and overflowing to both sides. The grass rose hedge on her backyard lawn was almost submerged in water. Sit tight, Shuang Tanan reminded. He quickly operated on the car control screen, and the off-road vehicle's prompt sound immediately sounded. Please confirm, you are about to enter an abnormal driving state. Confirm? Feiyu didn't say anything. If she spoke, the prompt sound would definitely switch to Shuang Tanan's voice and answer her. The new settlement's rules and regulations were somewhat overly human. Considering that people on the WoW would be traveling back and forth in off-road vehicles, and that the routes would be long and desolate, modifications to the off-road vehicle's exterior were prohibited. Officials allowed the interior sound warnings to use the driver's preferred timbre. The prevailing recommendation was to simulate the voices of the male and female householders themselves. This provided a sense of companionship when driving alone. In emergencies, hearing the voice of their spouse could help calm nerves and enable more informed decisions. Shuang Tian'an and Feiyu were both relatively uninspired when it came to these modifications. They simply followed the crowd and obeyed the official orders. Okay, wow, 7 or 8, execute the arrest order immediately. Feiyu's voice boomed clear and coldly over the vehicle's control system, without hesitation. She immediately looked down. The off-road vehicle suddenly extended a gripper, accurately gripping the largest crossbar mid-waist. Tian'an, drag it to a higher point on our lawn, no mistakes. Shuang Tian'an hummed, turned the car body, and gently lifted the crossbar. The wind raged in the light. Their backyard lawn looked normal in the darkness before, but now in the light, it was a mess of grass and leaves all over the ground. The rose hedge was almost crushed to the ground, and the remaining scattered flowers trembled on the stems, swaying in the wind. Shuang Tian'an drove the off-road vehicle very steadily, but the hanging crossbar swayed at both ends in the wind, as if it was twisting to break free from the control of the grip, or twisting to break the car apart. He stared down intently, moved slightly in a state of near hovering, avoided the scattered rose hedge, and released the grip. Without the suppression of the crossbar, the tide, driven by the wind, broke into strands and rushed into the gaps and the bundles of branches. Feiyu could see the turbulent water from the rising tide, splashing water as other waves swarmed to either side. Shuang Tian'an immediately turned the car around, returned to the river, and extended the grab handle to the bundle of branches. He picked them up and moved them to the grass slope, placing them next to the crossbar. Tian'an, there are still some loose ones, Feiyu called out. After the 3 most firmly tied bundles of wood in the center of the river were removed, the remaining 3 bundles were already loose, and without support, the tide rushed through, and soon the floating branches and weeds were floating all over the river. They floated up and down, some were pushed onto the grass, and most continued to swirl in loose balls. Shuang Tian'an raised his eyes to the nearby river bend. The tide would carry these floating branches there, gathering them and blocking the current. He operated the grab handle and continued to launch them into the river. This time, he only pulled up 4 or 5 branches. Feiyu frowned. This grabber was originally designed for encountering ferocious beasts in the wild and needing to capture or sample them. It was a device that ejected from the bottom of the vehicle. Its deployment was swift and powerful, and the bars instantly closed upon contact with the target, leaving even the most feral animal with little chance of escape. They'd used it to grab horizontal logs and tree bundles tonight, but now, it was no longer effective against scattered grass and branches. It would be nice to have a reeling function. Feiyu glanced sideways at Shuang Tian'an. She believed that with the right tools and time, he could add even better features to the grabber. Unfortunately, they had neither. Feiyu, can you control the vehicle? Keep grabbing branches, Shuang Tian'an asked, turning his head. I can. How about you? We have a scoop net at home. Put me on the lawn and I'll go down and use it. Feiyu's eyes shifted, and she immediately said, it's in the back row of the tool room, in the storage compartment at the bottom. There was a scoop net, which they had the robot weave last time. The Huangji River passes through her land. According to the settlement management regulations, her family is responsible for the daily dredging and supervision of the river section. Shuang Tian'an plans to apply for some dredging aircraft tools. The last time he was thinking about this, he happened to borrow a community service robot to go with him. He asked the robot to try to weave a scoop net and tie it to a telescopic pole, saying that he could sit on the floating bridge and catch fish and fallen leaves when he is free in the future. Today is the right time. You, be careful, stay away from the water. Feiyu immediately took over the control of the car. The car was lowered, the wing door opened, and the wind rushed in. She saw Shuang Tian'an was about to go out, and opened her mouth to warn, Tian'an, be careful when the wind is strong, we will do our best. Shuang Tian'an smiled and jumped off. Chapter 305 Dreamland. Qi Changgong watched as the surveillance screen automatically split into 2 screens as Shuang Tian'an jumped. His brows furrowed even more, and he spoke to the 2 of them at the same time. In 20 minutes, the people we sent will be here. Thank you, thank you. The 2 thanks came out one after another without any discussion, as if they had agreed on it. Shuang Tian'an smiled in the wind, and the woman's voice in the car was clear and cool, a beat slower. The 2 of them had no intention of waiting, and went about their business after thanking him. Qi Changgong watched Shuang Tian'an rush into the house and out in a moment, shaking out a fishing net against the strong wind and stretching it into the water with all his strength. He glanced at the waterline at Shuang Tianen's feet, and fixed his eyes on the wild car that was hovering above the river. Feiyu had a serious face, and it was obvious that she was anxious, but not panicked. Knowing that the projection grab was no longer effective, she still projected it back and forth in an orderly manner. She cast the headlights all over the river, always circling near Shuang Tianen. The two were one in midair and one at the water's edge. It was pitch black all around, the wind was whistling, and they were trying to dig in the water with tools that didn't suit them. After a while, Feiyu had an idea, and after throwing the grabber into the water, it immediately stopped, and then moved the car, just like sweeping the surface of the water, and drove those floating branches towards Shuang Tianen at a uniform speed. Shuang Tianen understood and immediately stretched out the scoop net, pulling back a net of branches. He walked back and forth at the water's edge, dragged the net to the higher point of the lawn, turned the net upside down, emptied it with his bare hands, and then rushed back to the water's edge. Feiyu drove another pile of branches to him. After a few times of cooperation, half of the branches on the river surface were dragged ashore. Feiyu glanced ahead. Beyond the light, the branches that didn't have time to reach the shore were flowing with the tide, and were gathering towards the river bend in a mess. She drove over. "Don't act alone," Qi Changgong shouted. Feiyu's next answer was, "I'm not acting alone." Shuang Tianen turned around and saw his off-road vehicle going along the river with lights on, so she took big strides to chase him. Feiyu was also afraid that Shuang Tianen would not have light, so she would occasionally shine the headlights directly at the rear. In the light and shadow, Shuang Tianen was waving his arms vigorously at the car on the ground, telling her not to go. Feiyu pursed her lips and saw Shuang Tianen looking up, waving his hands while running. At this time, he had already walked past the boundary of her backyard lawn. The area had not been trimmed as carefully as the lawn. So far, the wilderness outside the house had only been roughly turned over, so the ground was not so easy to walk on. Shuang Tianen's ground working conditions were not good, so Feiyu hesitated whether to go forward to chase Sansi. At this time, she saw him making horizontal cutting gestures and vertical knife gestures. "Deputy Director Yan, your Deputy Director Shuang asked you to stop and land," Xiao Wen Feiyu translated. Feiyu understood, of course. She hummed a sigh of relief, but she still felt uneasy about Shuang Tianen being alone on the rough ground, so she descended. "Feiyu," Shuang Tianen said directly, jumping into the car. "Let me take over, I'll get down." Feiyu thought Shuang Tianen was going to swap positions. "I'll control the car," Shuang Tianen panted. "You take a break, there's no one down there then, these aren't many left. Our section is open, so any further flooding will just keep it flooding. Let them reach the river bend, and we'll salvage as much as we can. We'll use handrails, so no one can go down there, it's a bit desolate after all." It made sense. Feiyu glanced at her lawn. It was a mess, with flower hedges, horizontal beams, and scattered branches. It had long lost the beauty of the day. But that didn't matter, with some tidying up, it could be restored. The water level had already quietly climbed to the bottom half of the slope. She wasn't sure if it would rise again, but she prayed it wouldn't. It would only flood to this extent. If it floods any higher, her new house will really have to rely on the protective shield. That's the last layer of defense. Shuang Tianen drove the car, using Fei's method, extending the grabber like a broom to drive the scattered branches together, then switching to the capture function, picking up the scattered branches that drifted into the river bend bit by bit. Fei's eyes watched the progress below, and every few minutes, she checked the environmental data of the new house. "Tianen, I used the current data and fitted it again. The result is new. Our lawn may not flood. The highest point of the tide has passed." Yeah, Shuang Tianen was half wet, but he still operated the grabber intently, but the smile on his face was bright. When the escort team found them near the river bend behind the house, they were piling the scattered branches they had picked up from the river into a field far from the riverbank. In the vast darkness, the car was surrounded by a ball of light, and in the light, the slender grabber could be vaguely seen, hanging a mess of branches, going back and forth again and again. The guards provided considerable assistance to Shuang Tianen and Feiyu. They brought tools and auxiliary guards, not only clearing the Huangji River once more but also clearing the fallen branches and leaves from the trees on the opposite bank. They also immediately degraded the branches on the merchant's backyard lawn. Finally, they presented Shuang Tianen and Feiyu with a can of high-efficiency plant fertilizer. Feiyu was reluctant to part with the thick crossbar that had caused them so much trouble. She touched the wet wood and said, "I need it." The guards in Shangtanen were stunned. The wind was still howling. Shangtanen smiled at the guards, clasped his fists, and bowed, calling them brother. "We still need the wood. Let's carry it inside." The guards then helped carry the crossbar into the main courtyard and sent the auxiliary guards to clean it. Dawn was approaching. Shangtanen and Feiyu gratefully escorted the guards out the door. The two returned to their rooms, ready for a nap. A robot is a must for the house, Feiyu concluded, settling into her sleeping bag. A robot helps with tasks, and there's no need to panic. They'd been mainly in meetings during the day, and afterward, reluctant to part with the extra afternoon, they returned to their new house, hoping to tackle some light work. Without their robot, they encountered a gust of wind, bringing with it a tidal wave. Look how panicked they were. Shangtanen glanced at her tired expression and let her know a bit of the unconfirmed news to cheer her up. "Maybe. Our department is considering gradually returning the requisitioned personal robots to the migrant families." "Really?" Feiyu perked up. "Our Shangyan is coming back? What about those migrant families who didn't have personal robots originally? The new settlements aren't like the communities in Shilinli. Everyone will live separately in the future. Using the Shilin community's centralized robot rental system would probably be very inconvenient. So, for the migrant families who didn't have personal robots originally, the department is considering issuing each family a unified management robot, perhaps combining domestic functions with external farm work functions." "What about our Shangyan's functions? Does he also need farm work?" Feiyu asked. Shangtanen nodded. "The department will compensate for the damage and depreciation of previous robots, and new functions and vehicles will be issued according to unified standards." Feiyu thought to herself that they had a piece of land, a house, and soon more robots would be coming. Everything would be complete. Her mood improved quickly. "Tannen, you were scared just now." She didn't get into the sleeping bag, and she started to talk more. Shangtanen was stunned and speechless. Seeing her eyes fixed on him, he turned his face slightly. "Oh, did we turn off the lights?" Feiyu seized the opportunity to put forward the argument. "You didn't dare to turn on the lights before." Shangtanen glanced at her, lowered her eyes and chuckled. Feiyu didn't care that he had the intention to dodge. She stared at him for a while, and the corners of her mouth slightly lifted. "At that time, there were only two of us alive in the world. I won't laugh at you. If you are scared, then you are scared. I was a little bit too." Yeah. Shangtanen smiled and nodded. After a long while, he took a breath and admitted frankly, "I was a little scared before, not to mention that there were only two of them alive in the world. Even if they were the only two people in the world, how could he not be Loki with Feiyu? Let's sleep." "I turned off the lights," he said with a smile. "Let's sleep." Feiyu crawled into the sleeping bag and muttered, "Good night." "Hey, do you still want the flowers in the backyard? If so, I'll help you trim them and tie some supports before we go back tomorrow." "I'll do it tomorrow. Let's not talk about it now and go to sleep." Feiyu let out more breath and fell asleep. Chapter 306, The Last Night at the Sky House. The wind blew and the bells rang. It was a clear and crisp day. Shangtanen gently pressed the slightly swaying string of flower bells. When he let go, the string of bells began to sway playfully again. He smiled helplessly, took a step back, carefully compared the hanging position, turned around and said, "Is this okay?" "Okay." Feiyu, who was at the bottom of the stairs, took a glance and said simply. Shangtanen believed Feiyu's judgment, smiled, turned around and quickly took the big package in her arms. "No, it's very light. I can carry it in myself. There are still a lot of them on the ground." Today, they started moving. After the trial move-in that night, they continued to decorate the new house for 2 weeks, and finally it was completed inside and out. All the items in the dome house of Qingyan community were moved in large bags. Even the string of flower bells that Shangtanen had made by hand on the lintel was good, so he didn't throw it away and moved it all in. In his words, "Move everything in first, and then put it back in place." Originally, they should have borrowed a community service robot, copied the layout of the new house to it, and then categorized their daily necessities and explained them to it, so that it could help put them in order. This is what other relocating families did. Since the Lin Zicheng family next door was busy with work at this stage, no one came. They asked the community service robot to take their belongings and sort them out first, and they would come after they officially moved in. Feiyu and Shangtanen did not borrow a community service robot. They took advantage of their relocation leave today and did it themselves. Why? Their family is special. There are 2 bedrooms on the 2nd floor. Feiyu held her belongings and stepped into her room. Brother Kyung's sunshine came in from the window and landed on a rocking chair by the window. For a moment, she felt a sense of sweetness after suffering. There was no time for sentimentality today, there was too much work to do. She quickly collected her thoughts, put down the package, and without rushing to open it, turned around and went out. Xiong Tannen happened to be walking up the stairs with several bags on his shoulders. "Why did you take them all?" she hurried to meet him. "This is yours." Xiong Tannen handed the 2 bags in his left hand to her. "Shall I take it? I can do it myself." Feiyu took the bag, turned right swiftly, and went into her room. Xiong Tannen looked at her back, smiled, and turned left. Their rooms were separated by the stairs, one on the left and one on the right. He opened the door, took out the clothes from the bag, pushed them out of the closet, and put them in one by one. "Can I come in?" There were 2 light knocks on the door frame. "Come in." He turned his head and looked at the door. Feiyu took a step inside, looked around the walls, and said, "I will find a way to make a bed for you after Xiongyan is returned." "I have a bed." Xiong Tannen smiled. Feiyu looked apologetic. Every immigrant family can apply for a large bed from the logistics department, and Xiong Tannen gave her his share. His room was officially a guest bedroom. But who could use a guest bedroom after being recruited to Luo Wang's place? The logistics department would not provide a guest bedroom with an extra set of bedding with extremely low utilization rate. Therefore, in Gu Huaixi's design, the guest bedroom was identical to the standard drawings from the WoW construction team, with just one room left out, minimally furnished, to facilitate future modifications to suit the family's needs. During the blueprint consultation process, Feiyu had made the master and guest bedrooms identical in size and view. She had been worried about the furnishings in Xiong Tannen's room. His bed, table, and chairs were all push-out, lightweight, like those found in dome-style furniture. Feiyu felt that since they had officially settled down, the master bedroom should be better, at least on par with her room. How could it be a multifunctional room that could be transformed at any moment by simply popping up and pushing it back? The master bedroom had to feel as solid as a rock. "Sit down and rest for a while." Xiong Tannen pressed a chair out for her. Feiyu glanced at the chair. "No. I still have things to sort out." "Then try this chair." Xiong Tannen pointed to the window and smiled at Feiyu, where there was also a rocking chair. Feiyu's lips curved into a smile. She had requested these from the supply system. 2 identical pieces, one for each room, ensuring no one was shortchanged. "No," she said, her gaze drifting out a window. The bright sunlight streamed in, making the room look spacious. She felt a slight sense of relief. "You're busy." "Oh," she said, turning back from the doorway. "Let's go down together for lunch later." "Okay." Fei's steps were brisk. From that day on, she finally had the independent bedroom she had always dreamed of in Luoyang. Oh, not only that. Standing at the right turn of the stairs, she looked out at the corridor that connected her study, her living room, her dressing room, and at the end, her large viewing terrace. Above the 3rd floor, the center line marked the entire right side, and it was all hers. From the 2nd floor up, Xiong Tannen and she actually each had half of the main building, living next door to each other. What a perfect fit for their idea. After finishing their work for the day, and before the vacant dome house at Shilin Heights had been completed, Fei and Xiong Tannen returned to Shilin. Back at Section 13 of Qinggong Community, the neighboring Dag family was strolling through the courtyard after dinner. "Hey, Brother Xiong, Section Chief, you're back," Dag's wife called over the fence. "Yes, is the new house all finished?" "Almost, so you're moving out tomorrow?" "Oh, so soon?" "The roundhouse gave us a moving deadline in the next few days." "That's right," Dag's wife said reluctantly. "We're such close neighbors, and we're suddenly separated. I'm going to miss you so much." The 2 of them had a quick dinner and sat under the west window to rest for a while, discussing some miscellaneous household matters. Then it was time for curfew. Fei's eyes stared at the familiar dome roof and the white moonlight that cast half the room. Unrelated sentence fragment, no mistakes, 1 post, 1 content, 1/6, 1 book, 1 bar. Lately, she had been focusing entirely on her new home in WoW, and only now did she realize that this was her last night in this dome. The room was small, to be sure. She scanned the walls and windows, convincingly assessing it as a warm haven for her and Xiong Tannen during their initial landings. Especially as she listened quietly to Xiong Tannen's shallow breathing on the ground, the difficult years they would share under this roof were truly, as Sister Dag had said, suddenly and abruptly ended. It had its merits, too. Tannen, a quick response came from the bed. I need to get up. I was wondering if you could help me save the bed. Oh, okay, Xiong Tannen sat up. Tonight, the large curtain draped along the center of the bed had been moved to its new home. Without it, and without the moonlight lingering on it, Fei's swift movement from her single bed was clear. This didn't seem like getting up for the night. Xiong Tannen hesitated and asked, "What's wrong?" "I forgot to write it down." Fei climbed out of bed and went straight to the door. Outside, the fenced courtyard was bright and clear. On section 13 of the highway, Alpha and Beta, along with the domes of each house, clung to each other, casting a shadowy, moonlit scene resembling a blooming lotus. Fei sat on the doorstep, turning on her communicator. "I think the road in front of our house is beautiful at night. I'll record it," she muttered. "It won't be there tomorrow." Xiong Tannen sat cross-legged on the bed, chuckling for a moment, peered out the window, and continued to wait. The night breeze was not too chilly, bringing the fragrance of various flowers from the western green belt. Fei leaned against the doorframe, head bowed in thought, writing a few words in her long unused Luoyang notebook. On September 23, the second year of Luoyang, the residence period for the domes in section 13 of Qinggong community ended. A frame of the moonlit road in front of the door was created, to serve as a garden scene for her future return home. Xiong Tannen calculating the time was almost up, and called out. After curfew, whether the bed is empty or the door is opened or closed will attract questions from the community security inspector. The ant has a timetable for dealing with various situations, which they have tested out in the past 2 years. Feiyu quickly closed her notebook. "Do you want to come and see the night view here? We take turns. Tomorrow it will only look like it during the day, and you won't be able to see it in the future." "Okay, come back." Feiyu hurried into the house. Xiong Tannen got off the bed, stood by the door to take a look, and turned back with a smile in his voice. "I didn't think so before, but it's really beautiful. Feiyu, if you want to keep it as a souvenir, I will cancel the appointment to check out tomorrow, and we can extend it to the last day of the moving deadline." "No need," Feiyu said hurriedly. "Then I'll close the door." "Okay." She waited for Xiong Tannen to walk back to the floor, and quickly reiterated, "Don't." "The sooner we move." Xiong Tannen lay down, teasing, "I thought you liked it here very much." "I kind of liked it after I left." Feiyu swiftly got into position and laid down. She glanced slightly to the side. Without a large curtain, she could easily see the floor. "Definitely not as much as I like our new house." "Do you like our new house very much?" "Of course." Feiyu saw Xiong Tannen turn his head to look at her curiously, so she also looked over and exclaimed, "It's spacious." The two laughed in half moonlight and half darkness. "We'll move tomorrow," Xiong Tannen said softly. "Yes." Feiyu put her head on the pillow and closed her eyes contentedly. "Starting tomorrow, no one has to sleep on the floor, and no one has to worry about the safety inspection. It's nice to be able to make your own decisions in your own home." Chapter 307 The Standard of a Happy Family. On the morning of September 25th, the second year of the Luoyang calendar, Feiyu opened her eyes from her large bed. A message popped up on her communicator. "Dear Ms. Yan Feiyu, the Wao Municipal Service Center sincerely wishes you good morning. How was your sleep in your new home last night? I'm sure it was very sweet. We wish you a prosperous and happy day and night from now on. Your family's seed farm is now well lit, making it perfect for a morning inspection. If you wish, you can also schedule an appointment with the Wao branch of the Ministry of Agriculture for on-site technical guidance. The 3 grain varieties you selected by default, millet, radish, and apple, can be planted in October. We deeply respect your hard work in promoting Luoyang's grain production. If you encounter any discomfort during your stay, please do not panic. Our service center provides excellent service to you and your family. You can consult the relevant functional service units for specific questions, or seek assistance from the nearest community manager. The following are the contact information for the functional departments and heads of each group in the Wao Settlement Municipal Service Center. We are your loyal life assistants in your new home in Wao. Please feel free to share your life experiences with us." Fei lowered her eyes, and after a moment of dazzle, she quickly caught sight of a line of words. Yan Feizai, head of the second group of Zhongnan. She has extensive experience in the community, is responsible, and friendly and easygoing. She sighed, and after a while, she pulled herself together and touched the access control system. The curtain slowly opened, and light streamed in from the front and back windows. It was indeed a sunny summer morning. The air was very quiet and slightly warm. After a while, she could hear various sounds inside. Birds chirping in the woods behind, and fists pounding in the courtyard below. "Good morning, Feizai." Shang Tanan gathered his posture, raised his eyebrows and smiled. "Good morning." Feizai walked to the courtyard and looked him over. "Are you awake so early? Did you sleep well last night?" "Well, how about you?" Shang Tanan's eyes were clear, just like this summer morning. After changing to a new environment, he slept really well. Feizai was very happy. She curled her lips and said, "I'm not very good. It doesn't matter. Every time I change a place, I will be used to the same bed for a few days." "Oh," Shang Tanan looked at her and said, "Do you want to have breakfast first or practice boxing?" "I've prepared breakfast, practice boxing. The old rules don't need to be changed." The members of the conscription team have daily health training targets. Feizai thinks it's better to complete the targets first. Shang Tanan nodded and stood not far away waiting. Although Feizai's eyebrows were a little tired, her punches were as crisp as before. Halfway through the fight, even her eyes were strong. Shang Tanan looked at her and felt relieved. He started again, continued from the broken punch, and fought with her. This courtyard is many times larger than their original fenced yard. The two of them don't have to squeeze in like before, one standing in front of the house door and the other at the yard door. However, after more than 2 years, it has become a fixed behavior. The two still have the same distance when they practice. They are used to it. After a set of military-adapted morning boxing, Fixa's cheeks flushed, her forehead was slightly sweaty, and her energy and spirit returned. "We have a lot to do today," she said at the dining table. "I want to make an appointment for technical guidance at the farm today." Shang Tanan looked over from the other end of the dining table. This time he chose a short length. The dining table was not as long as Fixa had adjusted it during the first trial, so the two of them only needed to speak in normal tones. He smiled. "While we have these 2 days off, it's best to get things done at the farm outside in advance." "That's what I thought too." Fixa swallowed a mouthful of nutrient. "I also need to visit all the people in Jili and make the first home visit statistics. I have a stay and experience report to submit. Do you want to come with me?" "Let's go together." Fixu was happy again. Someone helped write the report. "Well, I won't need the car after the home visit. You can go wherever you want." "I'm staying home." Feiyu raised her chin toward the kitchen window. "The decor inside the cabin needs some tidying up." Shang Tanan followed suit, gazing out at the densest canopy of trees in the woods across the river. The trees had been shattered by the strong winds earlier this month, but now nothing could be seen. The trees were lush and lush. In Qion's morning light, the fresh leaves seemed to shimmer, while the older leaves took on a deeper yellow-green hue. It reflected the Huangji River below and the azure sky above. It was truly a beautiful place. From the kitchen window, Feiyu's cabin revealed a small, dark brown corner. "If you want to put the nutrients in, I'll help you move them up," he said. "Not for now." The cabin was just a casual imitation of Mo Mang's. It would be quite pleasant to go up there and gaze at the surrounding fields in his spare time. But there was no need to carry food up there. The strong wind on the plains told her that now was not the right time. "In the future, our nutrients can be all localized." "I can consider it," she answered seriously, then changed her mind and said, "After the first round of harvest of our default varieties of crops, I might put some nutrients on them." Shang Tanan pursed his lips and nodded. "Eat, and then we'll get to work." Life in a new home, in fact, can be accustomed to over time. In the first few days, still on relocation leave, Feiyu and Shang Tanan were guided by people from the Ministry of Agriculture. They planted seeds in the fields outside the house and visited the neighbors in Jili. After the relocation leave, they would go to work together in the morning and go back to Wao together after work. The new residents of the Wao Plain quickly became familiar with each other. The Wao Division Guard Regiment, led by Qi Changgong and Cao Wenfei, also deployed regular patrols in the valleys bordering the Wao Plain at the eastern foot of the Qianping Mountains. They began making 2 daily patrols, morning and evening, accompanying the commuting traffic across the Qianping Mountains. Feiyu often rested in her family's off-road vehicle, listening to Shuang Tianen's conversations with neighbors or patrol members on the radio. Returning to her new home amidst all the hustle and bustle, although she returned later than when she lived in the Qinghai Community Dome, the vastness of the world was truly spacious and comfortable. After dinner, she and Shuang Tianen locked the front and back doors and enjoyed sitting in the courtyard to discuss work or household matters. Unrelated sentence fragment, no mistakes, one post, one content, 1619, one book, one forum. Look, when they lived in the dome, there was little chores. After taking their nutritional supplements and putting away the small table by the west window, they would just stare at each other, at most making a string of bells from scrap parts. But things were different now. A large family in a large business. Shuang Tianen was busy every night. He listed the farm tools, household utensils, and daily necessities that needed to be added. It was a long list. The logistics and materials department had already distributed all the quotas to each relocated family. If there were any special needs in life in the future, each person would have to find them on their own. When the two of them had eaten their fill, they would sit on the precious cloud blue stone and compare the items on the list, taking stock of what they had, who they could trade with, or if they could make them themselves. They had the conditions to do it themselves. Feiyu was a professional in landscape design and was barely a handicraft expert. Shuang Tianen said he could do the hard work. In fact, he had a good brain, too. That's how Feiyu thought of him. The most important convenience was that Shuang Yan had it back. After cleaning all the activity records during its service, the mechanical management department repainted it, making it look newer than new, and returned it. Now they finally had a household robot. A host and hostess, plus a robot butler, just as the WoW migration project team said at the summary meeting, the standard configuration of a happy small family. After installing the farming system and the housekeeping system, Shuang Yan immediately became an expert in both business and outside. Shuang Tianen was very thoughtful. He was afraid that the weather would turn to autumn and the days would become colder, and it would be difficult for the two of them to sit on the precious Yanqing stone. So after dinner one day, he said that he wanted to add a bench to the long list of items to be purchased. In the future, the bench would be placed on the veranda, where it could be exposed to the sun but not to the wind and rain. Feiyu spent the past 2 nights talking and watching Shuang Tianen directing Shuang Yan to tinker with a crossbeam that was fished out of the river on a windy night. Sometimes she would help to come up with ideas to change the design, and sometimes she would just look up at the sky and refrain from getting involved. Everyone has their own aesthetic sense, and she understood that. She was waiting for Shuang Tianen to cut the remaining material, and she had to make him a bed. She didn't know if it was enough, so if not, she would go and cut another one. Usually, this little free time after dinner would pass in a flash. Then Shuang Yan stayed in his own maintenance room, and the two of them returned to the main building. At the stairs, they said goodnight to each other and said goodbye, one on the left and one on the right. After spending a few nights there, Feiyu quickly adjusted to the spacious living space she hadn't experienced for years. There were no large curtains to touch with a turn of the head, no white moonlight dancing on them all night. Now she was getting used to a large room, where moonlight filtered through the curtains, only dipping onto a strip of floor near the window, and where only she could breathe freely. It felt a little grand and cool, like her boudoir back home in Momang. It was wonderful. Chapter 308, Popular Trends in New Settlements. By the end of September, all the relocated families had moved into their new settlement, WoW, as planned. Following a collective farewell party in Shilin City, Luo and Planet's social life suddenly shifted to WoW overnight. It seemed like every household had started hosting housewarming parties. This was the main topic of conversation in the commuter car group. Initially, one family was overjoyed, saying they hadn't been present for the groundbreaking and deeply regretted their absence. This official move-in, a truly joyous occasion back home, was a major event, so they invited everyone to their home for a simple weekend dinner to get acquainted and celebrate. The dinner was no small undertaking, inviting both new neighbors and old friends. The couple's colleagues from their department were definitely in attendance, along with a patrol team who labored daily in the car group, and then expanded to the security officers and soldiers they had met during their field work. The invitations snowballed, eventually reaching hundreds. Soon, a second family joined, and then a third. Shuang Tianen and Feiyu prepared gifts and ate at 3 restaurants in a row. One evening, the couple from next door, Lin's Hitchin, came to visit and gave them an invitation. After seeing them off, the two looked at each other and saw the pressure on them. Do you want to do it? Shang Tanan smiled. Dejing and Situ have been asking me these past few days, when can we have a banquet for everyone? Do you want to do it? Fei Zai turned her head to look at him, thinking in her heart, when her grandfather told her about the ancestral stories, did he mention to hold a banquet after the King Shuli mansion was completed? If we do it, Shang Tanan hesitated. Do it, Fei Zai made the final decision. I heard there is a subsidy for a big banquet. Shang Tanan almost tripped on the threshold with a puff of his feet. Sir, be careful. Shang Yan rushed over from the side, very attentive. Shang Tanan waved his hand to tell it to step back. It moved its feet silently, spun to Fei Zai's side, supported her elbow, and protected her over the threshold. Feiyu also waved it away, as she was discussing important matters. Do you really want to do it? Shang Tanan asked again. Feiyu glanced at him. His surprised look was definitely not because he was considering whether the subsidy would be issued or not. He was probably afraid that she would find it annoying. Do it, she smiled. This was the place where Shang Tanan's family business started in Luoyang, and it was also the proof that she had expanded the family business for her ancestors in Luoyang, not to mention that this was actually the first big house she had personally followed up on and completed. She might never build a house like this again in the future. Of course, do it. A lady is never afraid of banquets. She can eat banquets and host banquets. The teacher said so in class. So it was settled. She soon discovered that the community could not hide anything, no matter how old it was. Feiyu used to live in the community of Shilingaodi. It was densely populated. At first, it was okay because they were unfamiliar with each other. As time went by, everyone became more and more familiar with each other. Not to mention the section where she lived, even if there was something going on in the neighborhood next to her, they would soon know about it. Fixa's personality was actually more comfortable in the atmosphere of gentleman's friendship. News from the old community was often passed around, and she could see the lives of other families. The crowded life was not so much a physical constraint, but the inevitable intertwining of spiritual spaces, which she ultimately found unaccustomed to. After the new houses were built, the neighbors did not live together in a village, but each one was scattered among their own fields, separated by a considerable distance. Fixu felt relieved for a while. The Wao Plain was vast and sparsely populated, and it was definitely different from the collective dome living on the Shiling Plateau. At least on the way home, she would not have to greet at least 7 or 8 people face to face. She had thought so for a while. However, once everyone has experienced community, the community experience will not fade easily. The commuting traffic quickly drew together the scattered residents of the Wao Plain, and within a few days, they were familiar enough to chat and joke. On the main commuter aerial route designated by the Guard Corps for the new residents of Wao, any household that joined the spur line and reported to the patrol would be met with a flurry of greetings on the train. The noise was no less boisterous than when Fixu lived in the area of Shilinqiangwu, and the conversation never stopped. Sometimes Fixu had the illusion that she had moved from a small community of 10 households to a larger one of 60. This larger community, with its sense of isolation, fostered a greater appreciation for communication. Fixu was amazed at the speed with which the new Wao community had coalesced. The daily greetings on the trains made her dizzy. Life was new, and everyone chatted animatedly. She was amazed for a few days, but she got used to it, usually resting her mind throughout the journey. After all, life had also taught her experience. As long as she followed Shang Tanan, even if she didn't say a word, she would be mistaken for someone friendly and easygoing. Shang Tanan did all the talking. But today it seemed that it wouldn't work. Everyone wasn't chatting about other people's families, but hers. No mistake, just look at the 6-9 book forum. It said that no community can hide secrets. She and Shang Tanan had just decided to hold a housewarming party last night. This morning, when they were greeting 2 families on this Hongnan-Urjia commuter branch line, they mentioned it casually. They were mainly worried about scheduling conflicts and wanted to stagger their schedules as much as possible so that some of their mutual friends wouldn't be too busy. Well, now that they were going home from get-off work and out of the Tongkiao fortress, the team chatted for a few minutes and everyone started giving her family ideas. Deputy Shuang's family is also planning a banquet, so that means we'll have food and drinks again. Captain Wen of the patrol team even came in to make a joke. My family's designing the invitations, they're not ready yet, Shang Tanan said, smiling sideways at Fei Zai. When the time is set, Captain Wen must bring the brothers. Everyone should come. Feiyu has already started thinking about the dishes from our hometown of Mamen. Wow, if we go from house to house like this, we'll have tried all the specialties in the entire alliance, the car chattered happily. And Feiyu carefully noted the meaningful ideas from the conversation and added notes to her banquet schedule. The communication efficiency of the new WoW community was really high. By the time their car exited the main road and entered the Zhongnan Urgia branch line, the discussion about the merchant schedule had already been initially finalized. End of October, Yumo Day, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Captain Wen was incredibly generous. He immediately offered, Deputy Commander Xiang, Deputy Commander Yan, don't worry. I'll apply for you later. The banquet will be over at 8 o'clock, and our WoW commuter patrol will pick up the guests and take them back to Shilin. You won't have to report to our escort corps, Xiang Tannen thanked him repeatedly. This was the kind gesture of the Roundhouse Command. The first family in the new WoW settlement held a housewarming party, and the large number of guests, most of whom flew in from Shilin Highlands, brought in a flow of people into and out of Tongkio, rivaling a large-scale joint field operation. It's said that after the banquet, the moon was dark and windy, and the WoW Defense Division and Tongkio Fortress were on high alert, dispatching additional escorts to accompany the flight. Recent rumors suggest that Luoyang's first regulations for the management of escorts for large-scale private events will soon be issued, making it easier for everyone to apply for timely and effective escorts for non-official events. This is similar to the practices gradually being adopted by other civilized planets in the Alliance. Of course, this is still a transitional period. Roundhouse Command, the WoW Municipal Service Center, and the KAB Garrison Base had all given the go-ahead. The WoW people could have dinner if they wanted. There was no need to worry about large numbers of guests coming and going, the guards would definitely take care of transportation. After some discussion, the date was set. The action was imminent. Chapter 309 People of Customs. After dinner, Feiyu sat on the bluestone in the kitchen corridor, leaning against the pillars, feeling the evening breeze, and turned her head to look through the back door of the kitchen. Tannen. She glanced at Xiangyan who was following closely beside her, and ordered, go water the flowers and call the gentleman back. Yes, Mom, Xiangyan hurried to call him. Feiyu looked at his back, and he reminded her a little of the old housekeeper in the Mamen family, with a considerate and gentlemanly demeanor. She didn't know why Xiang Tannen chose such a style for him. Then she thought, he has always been cautious and moderate, so it's not surprising that he chose this style. But Xiang Tannen set a code of conduct for Xiangyan, work when there is work, and follow Feiyu when there is no work, and be on call at any time. Xiang Tannen also said that Xiangyan was in a probationary period, and asked Feiyu to keep a close eye on his performance. If there is anything that needs to be adjusted, he will come to adjust it. Feiyu gladly accepted the task and stared at Xiangyan intently. After evaluation, Xiangyan worked efficiently, but was too clingy. She was tired of being followed around, and secretly thought that Xiangyan's probation period was almost over, so she asked Xiang Tannen to change his waiter style and make him a dull, honest and taciturn one. She also asked Xiang Tannen to remove his code of conduct, and let Xiangyan go back to his maintenance room to wait when there was no work, so that he would not be in front of her. On second thought, it would be more appropriate to do this after the banquet. During the banquet, the butler stood at the door to welcome guests, and Mu Dundan seemed too cold. She should be more considerate to the guests. You see, she is cold-hearted, but she also knows how the world works. Her father taught her. Feiyu, what's the matter? Xiang Tannen turned to the back door of the kitchen and wiped his hands. These days, the grass roses have set seeds. He found it novel and said to put them away. Next year, he will seriously plant a flower garden on the vacant land next to the big house. Because of this, Xiangyan is not required to come to water the flowers and prune them after dinner. When Feiyu saw him, she immediately put aside her arrangements for Xiangyan. She stared at him as he approached, and then said, Tannen, I want to borrow a robot. Xiang Tannen glanced at her and understood, borrow it from our mechanical management department, is it okay? Feiyu explained the reason. Didn't a restaurant in Northwest No. 1 also have a banquet at noon that day? I checked the system. Although the robot of the Administrative Service Center has not been reserved by them, I think we shouldn't compete with them for the reservation. They must need it, and I just did a preliminary statistics of the guest list. There are too many people, and there is too much work to prepare in advance for the robots. After the banquet is over, there won't be enough time for the robot of the Administrative Service Center to move over. Oh, Shang Tanin pondered for a moment and said, "I'll go to the department and talk about it tomorrow." Feiyu leaned over slightly, helped him get a cushion, and put it where he usually sat, and asked curiously, "Are you so embarrassed?" Shang Tanin picked up the cushion and put it on his knees, then sat down directly. "If you want to borrow a robot, if it's not ours, I'd agree to coordinate it directly." He rubbed his face and smiled. "But it's ours." Feiyu's eyes shifted. "We have spare robots in the non-human department that I can use. They're all hunter type, though. Do you want them? I need a few waiters to serve food." Shang Tanin's mind immediately visualized the wiry hunters assigned to the non-human department. He couldn't help but laugh at the sight of them slicing through the guests with their sharp eyes. Feiyu continued, "The robots loaned by our non-human department cannot have their exteriors or systems tampered with. I set the rules. Do you want them?" Shang Tanin turned his face to smile, then turned back and nodded. "Let's borrow one from our mechanical management department. I'll talk to them. One from Shangyan isn't enough." "You can borrow from the neighbors," Feiyu muttered. "I'm not pressuring you. When it comes to household robots and money, you can't ask for it. This is the unspoken social rule. Money may be exchanged when needed, but this is really not allowed with household robots. There's so much family privacy information contained in them. Anyone who has received a civilized education will not ask for this, so as not to embarrass the person who borrows the money." Shang Tanin looked at Feiyu and couldn't help smiling more. He promised repeatedly, "Give it to me, I will definitely borrow it." "Okay," Feiyu said again, "you need to have a good image and raise your EQ?" Of course. Feiyu nodded, marked the task on her banquet list, looked up and said kindly, "Do you want to take another look at the flowers? If not, let's formally start discussing the planning and arrangements for the banquet." "No." Shang Tanin sat up straight, smiling humbly and gently. "You say?" Feiyu nodded and said, "Everyone in the car channel said that they want to experience the characteristics of Moming. I only have very little experience in Moming's family banquets." After a pause, she felt that she should let Shang Tanin understand something. "I have learned it, but I have never actually organized it." "Learned it?" Shang Tanin looked at her, and a smile appeared in his eyes again. "Great. Then leave it all to you to plan. You just tell me how to do it, and I will do it. Don't be so happy." What she wants to emphasize is that she has no experience. Feiyu muttered to herself, frowning slightly as she spoke carefully, "We've been to several banquets here before. In principle, I suggest we adopt the general principles of the housewarming parties we've seen, such as how to greet and see off guests. We should also adopt the buffet and dance format, as they do elsewhere. Of course, we should also give the guests the tour before the banquet. In short, we should try to align the procedures with those of other families, keeping the specifications as close as possible. Neither overly sophisticated nor overly simple. That's the best approach, don't you think?" Customs are a real headache, especially those in the making. The Luoyang people, having navigated the initial phase of isolated life and the centralized field research phase, established an exchange market on this planet, and community management matured. When families have issues, others come to consult and inquire, allowing family life and scientific research to coexist side by side. Unrelated sentence fragment, no mistakes, one post, one content, one book, one forum. As people go about their lives, one thing or another becomes a custom. Feiyu, at this moment, was a part of these customs. "I heard the director of the Laborers Exhibition Hall at the Luoyang Memorial Hall has recently embarked on a research project on Luoyang's local customs. The groundbreaking ceremony marked the beginning, and the housewarming celebration also played a significant role. The director had already dined at several of their restaurants. This time, Feiyu had included him on the guest list. They felt Shang Tanin had borrowed a shovel from the director before, and they needed to repay the favor. But she didn't want the director, after dining at her house, to be so excited that he asked her to write a report describing the banquet again. So, following the template was the right thing to do. The Moming characteristics requested by the guests will be reflected in the setting and dishes for the evening. This will align with the standards of other houses that have already held housewarming parties, while also adding a touch of originality. What do you think? Feiyu's words made such sense. What would Shang Tanin say? He trusted and fully agreed with someone who had already received housewife training and, he was told, had earned the certificate with excellent grades. Chapter 310 Invitation. On a mid-October weekend evening, On plots 75 and 76 of the second section of the WoW Central and Southern section, under the starry sky, the millet seeds sown with the Feiyu family were just beginning to emerge with their green tips, their leaves softly resting on the brown soil. The banquet had just concluded, and Lin Zicheng and Wu Yuan, smiling broadly, stood at the gate of the mansion, bidding farewell to each of the guests. As the closest neighbors and the heads of their section, and having been asked by the host, Feiyu and Shang Tannen naturally stayed behind to offer some assistance. They waited in the Lin residence's inner hall, outside the entrances to the men's and women's guest rooms, respectively. The regulations for field work stipulate that those within the protective shield on the highlands who wish to travel outdoors for work must, unless they have a special reason, change into protective clothing at Tongqiao Fortress before being allowed to leave. Currently, the WoW Plains habitable status only applies to 60 households. Although those flying out from the highlands to attend the banquet were not on field work, they were still required to change uniforms during the Tongqiao inspection, as they were entering the field area. Compared to the WoW family, the guests from the Xiling Highlands were much more restricted in their attire. The WoW family already wore separate protective gear, with lightweight casual clothing. Their standard protective gear for the outside was a one-piece lining, and the outer garments were uniform, camouflage for both men and women. This was a private banquet, not a work meeting. So, starting with the first WoW family's banquet, close friends from the Xiling Highlands devised a compromise. They would change into protective gear after leaving the hood, safely arrive at the host family's private residence, and then change into their own formal attire, making the banquet less boring. This method gained the approval of Tongqiao Fortress and the Keibai garrison, and as each family held a banquet, it became a standard practice. Each host family would raise their protective shield and set up a reception hall inside the main gate, with separate male and female guest rooms for guests to change into. Today, Shang Tannen and Feiyu assisted Lin Zicheng and his wife in directing guests. Daytime guests were relatively easy, simply being directed to the male and female guest rooms. The banquet ended, and Shang Tannen, accompanied by a robotic entourage, distributed a return gift from the host family to each departing male guest, a box of fancy candies made with local ingredients, made by the Shilin Community Canteen. Feiyu waited for the female guests who needed to touch up their makeup before counting them into Captain Wen's return convoy. Some of the families from Shilin had rented a shared off-road vehicle, while others had simply boarded vehicles with familiar guard officers and soldiers. Feiyu had to carefully check and ensure no one was left behind. Even the families from the WoW Plains had to confirm that they had followed Captain Wen to the main SkyTrain and then down the immediate commuter line. It was a rather trivial task, but the details were well thought out. For example, the guests included couples from the recruitment corps and single non-commissioned officers from the guard. By distributing pastries to the men, she ensured that every couple and single non-commissioned officer received a return gift. The guards didn't need to worry about their return journey, as they would arrange it themselves. The returning couples from the conscription team needed special attention, so Feiyu stood outside the women's guest room and counted them one by one. Lin Zicheng and Wu Yuan were one of the very few couples in the conscription team who worked in the same department. In fact, only the science department had a few such exceptions in the entire conscription team. It seemed that such talent was hard to come by. The host couple were both from the science department, and today at the Lin family banquet, almost the entire science department was present, except for a few people on duty at Shilin. The guards attached great importance to this. Not only did Captain Wen bring a patrol to congratulate them, but Qi Changgong and Cao Wenfei also came, bringing a team of elite soldiers. The guest couples walked out of the guest room corridor, received their return gifts, and made their way home. Most of them would stay in the foyer, waiting for their spouses to go out together, and would also casually ask, "Has anyone from my family come out?" The Lin family's improvised inner foyer was bustling with activity. Shang Tannen had often worked outfield with the science department during the early days of landing, and he knew almost all of these visitors. While exchanging pleasantries and overseeing the robotic attendants distributing gifts, he would occasionally raise his voice to Feiyu, who was standing in the adjacent women's hallway, and ask, "Feiyu, could you please check if Mr. So-and-so's sister-in-law has come out yet?" He never left Feiyu confused, always calling out the full names of all the guests. Feiyu would then find the time to nod, search the women's checkout queue, and peer into the women's room for a moment. Since she knew all the faces, but didn't recognize any, she would simply recite, "Mr. So-and-so sister-in-law, your husband is waiting for you." After a group of guests had gone, most had left. Shuang Tian'an breathed a sigh of relief and turned to look at the women's room door. Feiyu had just calmed down, glanced at him, and dutifully sent a message to Captain Wen, reporting the number of people. This had all been agreed upon beforehand. He smiled, and was about to walk over to ask if they were tired when another group of people emerged from the men's room. "Commander Qi, Dean Chun," he greeted politely, his gaze sweeping behind them, all of whom were members of the Qi garrison. "Brothers, are you leaving?" "Yes." Chun Yuanzhao, dressed casually today, looked more cheerful than usual, and even joked. "Deputy Commander Shuang, you've been busy helping out today, thank you for your hard work. We'll have dinner at your house next time, we're expecting distinguished guests, so please come and visit us," Shuang Tian'an continued. Qi Changgong smiled faintly, remaining silent. "I've heard Deputy Commander Shuang and Deputy Commander Yan's new home is incredibly beautiful," Chun Yuanzhao said, glancing at Feiyu, who had just finished her video call. He nodded, his tone smiling, his voice full of pleasure. "I'm just afraid I'll have to go on duty suddenly, so I'll definitely come if I'm not." Feiyu smiled and continued at her post. Shuang Tian'an escorted the group out of the inner hall. Turning back, Feiyu raised an eyebrow at him. "There shouldn't be any guests inside. Let's say goodbye to Brother Lin and Sister Lin and go home, shall we?" "Yes." Shuang Tian'an glanced at her, a smile on his lips, and said nothing more. The two of them simply thanked the Lin family profusely, took double the return gift, and the car sped past the two families' fields until they arrived at their own home. Shuang Tian'an opened the door, turned on the lights, turned around, and suddenly smiled. "Feiyu, no matter who comes, we'll receive them the same way, of course." The invitations had already been officially sent out. Every WoW family hosting a banquet would invite the head of the WoW Defense Division. It was just etiquette. "Hurry up and check the access control. We still have a lot to prepare after that." Feiyu was worried about the progress of her own preparations. As she walked Shuang Tian'an from the front to the back, she summarized, "Today's reception for the Lin family was a bit hectic. Maybe we're inexperienced, but I think their guest room is a little cramped. What do you think? Should we design it a little larger?" "Yeah, that makes sense. I'll change it in a minute. Should we discuss it in the kitchen or in the small living room on the first floor?" "Let's go to my upstairs cloakroom. We need to decide on the design of our dresses today, otherwise Xiangyan won't have time to make them." On the grass in front of the gate of the house on plot 7778, some exotic flower seeds donated by the WoW Agricultural Technology Guidance Center quietly broke through the soil in the night, unfolding one or two cotyledons. The milky gray house, still not covered with protective shields, leaked a warm light from a second-floor east window, casting a glimpse of light on the tops of the tender leaves. The rest of the building melted into the night. "Everything is fine." Shuang Tian'an sat in Feixu's cloakroom and said this sentence several times. Looking at Feixu's increasingly serious and dissatisfied expression, he had to smile every time he said it. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 311 Dress and Nagai Cake. Which one do you think is the best? I really think they are all good. Feiyu raised her eyebrows and glanced at Shuang Tian'an, then turned her head and stared at the projection of Shuang Tian'an in the middle of the room. 17 or 18 sets of clothes have been put on this projection, and except for the first one, he himself said okay, this one, the others are all good. Feiyu thought about it, switched back to the first set, let the projection rotate all the way around, stared at it carefully, turned her head to confirm again. "Do you like the effect of this set the most?" "Not to mention, they are all good." Shuang Tian'an's words were blocked by her, and he smiled and nodded. "Okay, this one." Feiyu breathed a sigh of relief. "Now choose mine." Her real-life full-scale fitting projection flashed in the middle of the room. She was wearing a dark green princess dress with a slim waist and a long skirt that dragged on the ground. She faced the two of them with a solemn appearance. Shuang Tian'an took a look and sideways looked at her. She had a thoughtful look on her face, staring at her own projection for a long time without saying a word. "I think it's very good," he praised carefully. "Not good." Feiyu frowned slightly. "The color doesn't match the suit you chose." As she said that, she simply played the projection of Shuang Tian'an wearing the first suit. Feiyu's projections in various clothes switched at a speed of 1 every 4 or 5 seconds, standing side by side next to Shuang Tian'an's projection. Is it okay? Yes, very good, very beautiful. Feiyu didn't even turn her head to Shuang Tian'an, but just raised her eyebrows and glanced sideways. She always said that, and always hurriedly added very beautiful at the end of the sentence, but it seems that it is not beautiful enough. As for her clothes, considering that she had to use the local Luoyang fabrics that the logistics and materials department specially distributed to the Wao people, the fabrics were not delicate and colorful enough, but the Wao Municipal Service Center strongly recommended that the host couple of each housewarming party wear new clothes made of local fabrics to entertain guests, which has also become a customary practice. Feiyu calculated the fabrics she was given, looked at Shuang Tian'an, and then at the two shadows standing side by side in the center of the room, and in a blink of an eye she changed her own one for another. That night, Shuang Tian'an was released very late. Walking to the corridor, the moonlight was all over the ground. October of the second year of Luoyang, Yumo Day. A big day. The last ray of golden sunset cast on the Huangji River. Feiyu picked up a piece of crystal cake and took a closer look. Steam curled up from the cake, and the fragrance was fragrant. The color was very pure, a layer of white, a layer of green, a layer of purple, and a layer of yellow. She took a bite. Madam, she was startled, and the crystal cake almost choked in her throat. She raised her head and frowned as she looked at the kitchen door. The sir has returned from a field tour with the guests, Shuang Yan said respectfully. I saw it. Feiyu swallowed the crystal cake hard and waved to Shuang Tian'an behind Shuang Yan. Come in quickly and close the door, eat slowly. Shuang Tian'an walked over and smiled. Is the cake ready? I just came to take a look. It's ready, it tastes okay. Feiyu turned around and instructed the robot assistant behind her, open the tray and cut 2 pieces for the sir first. I don't want it, just taste it. I'll take it out for you later. Sit down. Feiyu turned her head and glanced at the borrowed robot assistant. The one she borrowed was dull, and he was bending over, wondering whether to cut it or not, and was waiting seriously for the two of them to reach a consensus. And her own Shuang Yan had already automatically pushed out a chair for Shuang Tian'an. Cut 2 large pieces, she gave a clear and brief command. The robot assistant nodded and started cutting immediately. The movement was not slow. He moved the plate to the side of the table in a flash. Sir, please, the heat hit Shuang Tian'an's face. Sir, it's hot. Shuang Yan immediately reached out to pull the plate away. Madam also eats at this temperature. The robot assistant paused, staring with 2 bionic eyes in surprise. Madam is not hot, so this is a safe temperature. I don't mean to hurt, sir. Stop. Feiyu looked at Shuang Tian'an across the dining table, and the 2 robots standing on his left and right, and turned her raised finger. You two. She walked around Shuang Tian'an and pointed at the robot assistant and Shuang Yan respectively. You, calm down and continue cutting the cake. You go outside. If there are guests looking for my husband or me, just say we are preparing Changja cake. Yes. The 2 robots turned around and went about their own business. When they were extremely busy, they still had to mediate the differences in the level of understanding between the robots, which was really confusing. The borrowed robot assistant was only borrowed temporarily and was not under the jurisdiction of Shuang Yan, so it only obeyed the temporary manager. In other words, it only had the obligation to communicate with the temporary manager. If other robots had opinions about its behavior, according to the general rules of robot behavior, it had the right to ignore them or argue with reason. This robot assistant chose to argue with reason. What a straightforward character. Before it was retired from the mechanical management department, its category was set as a clerical assistant, and it was particular about meticulousness. Shuang Tian'an borrowed it from the mechanical management department, and the basic system was not greatly changed. Only the housekeeping function was installed superficially, so it still had its own original judgment and wisdom. And Shuang Yan, after being returned to his home for a month, he can be said to have gradually become familiar with the family. Within the scope allowed by his free will, he has developed a set of considerate and attentive service styles. So, they started to argue. There were so many trivial matters like these that popped up in today's banquet that Feiyu didn't feel flustered when she got up this morning. She thought that everything would go smoothly after planning over and over again. In fact, she was a little too focused on the beginning and not the end. Feiyu glanced at the kitchen. There was Shuang Tian'an and her, as well as a room full of various robots that were temporarily doing housework. Most of the backbone of the banquet preparations were here. It's a little cold, she pointed her finger at the plate of crystal cake. Shuang Tianen's forehead was slightly sweaty. He had set out to Shilin early in the morning to pick up the borrowed robots. After the guests arrived one after another, he was busy receiving them and showing the guest convoy around. He hardly sat down that day. There were still 100 or 200 guests outside. I eat quickly. After eating this dish, we can have dinner after the guests leave. Mrs. Lin next door reminded me that they didn't expect it that day and were very hungry. Shuang Tianen smiled, thinking about it, it made sense, so he might as well fill his stomach quickly. Is it enough to eat? Yes. I made a lot. Feiyu paused, pointed his chin at the stove area, and added, a lot. The tall steamers, stacked up, were almost poking at the top of the kitchen. These large-capacity utensils were all borrowed from the Wao Municipal Service Center. Ever since the trend of housewarming parties became popular, the Municipal Service Center was very thoughtful and quickly set up a small department in the business unit, a non-conventional daily necessities rental office, to facilitate small families who had just moved out of their jobs to hold private banquets. The dishes and table were used by the 100 or 200 guests today, as well as the tables and chairs arranged in the courtyard, and the colorful lights and signs for the SkyTrain in front of the door to this Hongnan Urgia commuter branch line, were all borrowed in advance by Shuang Tianen and picked up from the Wao Municipal Service Center this morning. You eat too. Shuang Tianen got up, took the plate, and placed a piece in front of Feiyu. You must be exhausted today. He looked at Feiyu, who was sitting in the crystal cake robot in the dish drawer. It seemed like they hadn't seen each other for a long time since they last met. She was surrounded by the fragrance of the crystal cake, and her eyebrows and eyes looked a little different from usual. I'm fine. How about you? Are you tired? I'm not tired. Feiyu glanced at him and lowered her head to eat the cake. I said that the people who had a banquet in front looked a little busy, and we are about the same. Shuang Tianen smiled. It seems so. It doesn't matter. Bring out the Changgong cake, the staple food will be served, and the process is halfway done. Yet. Is it delicious? It's delicious. Feiyu laughed, and while she and Shuang Tianen hurriedly ate the cakes, she comforted herself and complained, why did the sister-in-law who held the first housewarming party come up with the idea of making cakes by herself, and she made them praised by everyone, which made the people who came after her suffer. She spent the whole afternoon in the kitchen, commanding these robots and crystal cakes to fight. In every Wao family's housewarming party, the hostess must make a plate of cakes by herself and serve them to the guests. It is called Changgong cake, or Changju for short. And this Changgong cake is not of the same style. They are all the skillful works of the hostess of each family. They either study the recipes carefully or take them from the memory of the flavors of their hometown. Each family has its own unique characteristics. The new Luoyang people from all over the universe gathered in the new house to cheer for the host family. The curator of the Laborers Exhibition Hall, who has been fascinated by folk customs recently, has already set up a small chapter for Changgong cake and is looking forward to eating her cake. Chapter 312 The Most Respected Guest. The two of them had a quick meal while the robot assistant was cutting the cakes. Shuang Tianen quickly cleared their plates, straightened his shirt, and took out a large kitchen coat for a Feiyu. I'll serve the cakes. Do you want to wear it? Yes. Feiyu took it and put it on. She looked like a housewife. She opened the door and walked out, looking back and asking with concern, is it heavy? No, the pale shadow of a crescent moon had already risen over the easternmost fields. Dusk had not yet fallen. The early autumn evenings in Wao are always warm and clear. In the merchant's courtyard, the night light strips shone softly, complementing the lights leaking from the voices in the main building lobby. The time was just right. Feiyu felt much more relaxed. Seeing Shuang Yan running back and forth at the door in front, she immediately operated the communicator. I'll tell Shuang Yan not to ask it to help with the serving. As they crossed the courtyard, she turned and held up the oversized dinnerware. It's my turn. The hostess was supposed to serve the Changgong cake to the guests. Be careful, it's heavy. Yes. The door to the banquet hall opened, and before the two could notify those inside, someone exclaimed in surprise, hey, the Changgong cake is here. Oh, it smells so good. Several voices cheered from inside. People near the door also peeked out, some making way, some rushing to help. Fei Zai looked into the bustling hall of her home, her lips curled. Feng Huo, UK, Lu Huojing, and the other sisters-in-law were so supportive. Even from inside, they could smell the aroma. The cake was so sweet. Everyone cheered. Controlled liquor also joined in the fun, and a fleet of robots brought out boxes of food marked with the origins of the Mamen dish. While everyone was enjoying the food, Feiyu quietly withdrew. Xiong Tanin greeted the guests as he saw a break. He walked out of the lobby, around the now quiet guest viewing corridor, and ascended the side stairs of the main building. He took 2 steps at a time and dialed a video call. Feiyu, it's almost time, right away. Feiyu waved her hand, telling the robot to retreat. She took one last look at herself in the mirror, smoothed her skirt, stood up, and turned to open the door to her room. The schedule was so tight that she couldn't even look in the mirror for too long when changing clothes. A moment later, Xiong Tanin's voice came from outside the door. Feiyu, are you ready? Yes. Xiong Tanin paused for a long moment at the doorframe before speaking, his voice slightly questioning. So, shall we go downstairs? Feiyu wondered if the actual effect of this tight, loose-leg mermaid dress on her body was quite different from the simulated projection effect when it was selected. Xiong Tanin was stunned, and it was obvious that he had something to say. She straightened her waist and glanced at her profile in the mirror calmly. It was scarlet red, well-fitting, without any extra wrinkles except at the back, and the silver piping at the back was not broken at all, very delicate. A little bit coquettish. It was a little contradictory to her overall temperament, but the contradiction disappeared with a smile. Among the several styles selected during the fitting, this was the most reliable one predicted by Xiongyan's clothing system, considering the characteristics and quantity of Luo Wang's new fabric. Let's go downstairs, she said, deciding not to ask for his opinion. Now, it was too late to ask anything. Where are the guests? They are all in the banquet hall. Situ is helping to take care of them. Xiong Tanin extended his hand to her. Feiyu walked closer and put her hand in the crook of his elbow. Xiong Tanin took her out of the room, and then suddenly remembered that they had held hands too early, and the guests were still downstairs. Feiyu, he turned his head to look at Feiyu, his eyes subconsciously pausing, then focusing on her face. Taking advantage of the quiet, deserted second-floor hallway, he whispered, later, is that okay? He felt a hint of trepidation. Yes. Feiyu turned to glance at him, then suddenly raised the corner of her lip as she reiterated, of course. Xiong Tanin chuckled softly and turned his head to the side. Let's go. The clamor in the banquet hall downstairs suddenly quieted as they appeared at the stairwell, followed by a wave of enthusiastic applause, interspersed with cheers. The host was elegant and refined, his smile bright, while the hostess was radiant and generous. Fortunately, they had already descended several steps when Fang Situ quickly signaled to the others, hush, hush, the host has something to say. Let's let him speak first. The laughter intensified, and the hall erupted in jubilation. This banquet host's job was so clumsy. Feiyu didn't hesitate to attribute a phrase she'd recently learned at the heads of department meeting to Fang Situ. However, seeing the smiling faces of her colleagues, friends, and neighbors, she smiled too. What am I saying? Xiong Tanin was completely lost for words by this unexpected incident. Fortunately, he had quick wit and continued to chatter while leading Feiyu down the stairs. They paused on the last step, finding a phrase. What else can Feiyu and I say except thank you, he said aloud. Thank you all for your support for Feiyu and me, and thank you to the leaders for your support. Without your sincere help and care, I can't imagine how boring and difficult my life in Luoyang would be. Enough of this small talk. I wish all of our lives will become better and better, and that our Luoyang home will become more and more beautiful. We will become better and better, everyone roared. We will become more and more beautiful. The room filled with laughter. Xiong Tanin and Feiyu walked to the center of the hall amid cheers, and melodious music began to play. He smiled softly and released her hand. Our host and hostess will invite our most respected guests to dance, Fang Situ said loudly and jokingly. Everyone, watch carefully. Our dance is the Mamen dance. Feiyu smiled like a lady and walked towards the group of guards. She stood 2 steps away gracefully, her voice like the tinkling of a mountain spring. Captain Qi, may I ask you to dance? It would be an honor, Madam Xiong. Qi Changgong looked at her, bowed slightly with great grace, and held her fingers with his hand. They walked hand in hand to the center of the hall. Xiong Tanin invited the wife of the head of the mechanical management department. This was a rule that had spread spontaneously, and every family followed suit until it became a convention. Every household on the Wowo Plain would invite acquaintances and friends from both the guards and the recruiting corps to a housewarming party to show their close relationship. For the first dance, the hostess would invite the highest-ranking member of the guards to show respect, while the host would invite the wife of the highest-ranking leader in the recruiting corps. General Shruni was supposed to be the most distinguished guest, but unfortunately, even after being invited, he always showed up with courtesy, never in person. Presumably, he was overwhelmed with the work, lacking both time and the 60 families from Wowo hosting the banquet. Many more families from the Primordial Plateau were also expected to relocate. If the Supreme Leader left while several familiar families of his subordinates were absent, wouldn't it be easy to see the perception of favoritism? Therefore, whenever the Wowo people held a banquet, General Shruni wouldn't come. While some officers from the Primordial Plateau would come, others wouldn't come because they had no connections or were on duty. However, the chief and deputy chiefs of the Wowo Defense Division always attended, regardless of any prior acquaintance or friendship with the host family. It was for this reason that every hostess invited Qi Changgong, the current supreme commander of the Wowo Division, for the first dance. He handled the situation well, being gracious, kind, and composed. This month's banquets had spread the Wowo Defense Division's reputation far and wide. If there weren't a shortage of unmarried women on Luoyang's star, a warm-hearted sister-in-law like Feng Huer might have been willing to act as a matchmaker for him. Feiyu danced with him, their eyes locked. She'd thought Qi Changgong wouldn't come, but he actually was. Chapter 313 Congratulations to us. Under the illumination of the stars and the moon, the newly built Milky Gray house of Shengjia is brightly lit tonight. The waves of the Huangji River flicker outside the lights, as if listening to the music gurgling out of the house. Feiyu turned with the music, and her eyes moved to Shuang Tanan, who was not far away. He seemed to be having a good chat with the wife of his immediate superior. This elder sister did not seem to know how to dance the Maman dance. Shuang Tanan took slow steps, looked over and smiled at her. He probably felt uneasy. Feiyu smiled back, and her eyes moved back to the front. 2 fists away in front was, of course, Qi Changgong's face. Feiyu thought to herself that it was not the master's way to dance without communicating with his dance partner throughout the whole process. Chief Qi Wei, she started to speak, calling the new official by name. Qi Changgong's eyes dropped and looked at her nose. Feiyu saw his surprise and alertness. What was he alert about? Feiyu simply tried to maintain her smile. Sister Shuang, his smile was as perfect as hers, leaving Feiyu breathless. Do you like our dishes today? They're quite good. Feiyu stared at Qi Changgong's harjua, truly disliking the way his rich voice was so close to her. A wave of nostalgia washed over her. She still remembered the Qi family's kind grandfather, who had enjoyed sitting in the garden with her father, watching Tadakwing and reminiscing about their youthful adventures. Alice, 2 generations had passed, and the grandchildren had grudges, spouting insincere and empty talk. At a few moments, she noticed Qi Changgong's lips twitch slightly, as if he had something to say, but he kept it to himself. Feiyu sympathized. With 100 or 2 guests watching, even if it was just for show, he should have found something more mundane to talk about, but he wasn't in the mood. There really was nothing to talk about. Qi Changgong had not forgotten all the Momang dance. As she evaluated it, her mind inevitably flashed back to the engagement party at Momang's house when she was a child. She remembered that he had not learned all the rules at that time. When the 2 children were dancing hand in hand, he suddenly stopped and poked the bouquet of flowers handed to him by the robot directly under her nose, causing her to almost sneeze in front of the guests. Feiyu recalled the adults' gorgeous clothes and the toasts, and she described the layout of the house in her mind bit by bit. She also thought of the snow dragon liquid she moved to the tree house afterwards, and there were still 2 small bottles left. The bottle that Shuang Tanan drank had a little more left than hers. This must be remembered clearly, otherwise it would be embarrassing to make a mistake when she goes back to try it again. She glanced to the side and saw that Shuang Tanan and the minister's eldest sister were dancing very well. So many guests gathered in the hall of their house. The layout of the hall was carefully checked by her and Shuang Tanan last night. Of course, there are not as many treasures as the Maman family, but considering that this is in Luoyang and they have only been here for more than 2 years, this family fortune was earned by her and Shuang Tanan from scratch. If the old man were alive, he would definitely praise her. Feiyu's heart was naturally filled with joy. She turned her eyes and met Qi Changgong's again. Qi Changgong was very considerate this time. His elegant smile was the same as hers, which he always maintained. This was the most approachable look she had ever seen from childhood to adulthood. Of course, it was just a superficial smile for others to see. He was talented at work, but he was still not as good as Grandpa Qi, who was a real person. Feiyu felt a little sorry for Grandpa Qi. However, apart from the fact that Qi Changgong had angered her by pursuing love secretly, he had nothing to do with her. When the music ended, she followed the etiquette and bent her knees to Qi Changgong. Qi Changgong looked at her and bowed slightly. Let us thank our esteemed guests, the WoW Defense Division, for the brave, heroic Qi commander and his brothers who have protected our peace. Feiyu was delighted that Fang Situ had so well timed her call. All she had to do was smile again, words unnecessary. Thank you, the gentle and virtual sister-in-law of Minister Ken Fang of the Mechanical Management Department. Fang Situ's loud mouth continued to shout, the host couple is about to dance. Deputy Directors Shang and Yan are about to dance. Come on, a fiery momang dance. Applause and cheers rang out again. Feiyu glanced at Shang Tannen, who was approaching, and couldn't help but clarify to the crowd, we haven't prepared a fiery momang dance. Shang Tannen turned his face and smiled, extending his hand to her. Feiyu, this was his first dance with her. Last night, while reviewing the banquet details, they both expressed a certain surprise. They'd known each other for years, through school dances and regimental celebrations, but they'd never had the chance to dance together, save for the night before Korachi left, when he'd circled her doing military boxing and long and short punches. Can you dance? Feiyu asked him last night. A little, the most standard momang opening, feast night, I've reviewed it, with all the preparations going on. Feiyu waved the matter over. There really wasn't enough time to find a fiery opening. Her goal was to have the host open the dance with a smooth and steady flow, interspersing pleasant, novel, and distinctive dance music with the guests' dances. There were a few passionate and unrestrained tunes among them. Oh, right. She begged Shang Tannen to copy the Donglan dancing robot system onto the borrowed one. If the guests couldn't dance the momang dance, it wouldn't matter, the dancing robot would lead the dance. She and Shang Tannen could finally take a break. I won't let you down, she thought to herself. As the banquet's chief planner, she wanted her guests to feel at home. Shang Tannen smiled and took her hand. Momang's banquet serenade flowed into the hall like water. Qi Changgong returned to Cao Wenfei, Gujek, and the others, listening to the jokes. Aki, your momang dance is fantastic. He picked up a drink and, like everyone else, cast his gaze towards the couple in the center. The host smiled with a low brow, the hostess tapped to the beat, and whispers drifted through the music. Did you talk just now? Yes. I asked him if the dishes were to his liking, and he said they were. That's it. Did you think we were going to fight? No. Shang Tannen chuckled, thinking to himself that when Feiyu had walked straight towards Qi Changgong, to him, who had a vague idea of her temperament, it had indeed seemed more like a challenge. No. People like us can handle it. Feiyu slightly pulled the corner of her mouth and looked up. You dance very well. Where did you learn it? Donglan, the human body training class that my senior recommended in the first year. No creativity at all, Feiyu muttered. She remembered that the course was offered every year, and there were always many people who chose it, and she had chosen it too. Shang Tannen smiled with pursed lips, and his breath blew the hair around her ears. He turned his face away. Hi, Tannen. Shang Tannen lowered his eyes and met Feiyu's happy eyes. Congratulations to us, we have a real house. Congratulations to us, he raised the corner of his lips. Chapter 314, Clearing a Human City. In the third year of Luo Wang's reign, the Roundhouse Command established 2 new settlements in the first half of the year, on the Rongxin Plain, west of the Abyss Valley, west of the Shilin Highlands, and in the northern part of the Rongai Plain, southwest of the Shilin Highlands. In addition, a number of households moved into the first settlement, the Wao Plain. People also moved into the Keibai Delta, east of the Wao Plain, and most of them are now located near the Keibai Garrison Camp. Within the Shilin Highlands, the 4 original dome-shaped communities of Qingayan, Kaiyan, Huayan, and Fenggayan were completely relocated before the arrival of winter. After the Fang Sita family's housewarming banquet, the Fixu family's spring planting of radish had a bountiful harvest. She and Shang Tannen sold the entire crop to the Ministry of Agriculture, receiving a reward of double the purchase price for any excess. The remaining radish apples in the fields are ready for harvest. The alliance's quota of high-energy nutrients has been gradually reduced from 3 servings per person per day, morning, noon, and evening, to 1 serving per person per day. The remaining 2 meals are made with locally grown vegetables. At the end of the 3rd year of Luoyang, the Chuxi returned. Roundhouse Command decided to advance the New Year's Eve celebrations. As usual, everyone gathered at the Mural of Fort on the Shillin Highlands for a grand banquet before evacuating. Only essential guards and personnel remained within the Highlands' protective bubble. Tongkiao Fortress resumed its highest security entry and exit procedures. During the year-end review, each department outlined its work plans for the first quarter of the new year. Most personnel were assigned to field duty. After 3 years, a preliminary and comprehensive network of observation stations had been established across the Pangaea of Luoyang, extending into the depths of the Pandao Sea. The observation stations on the plains of the 3 human settlements outside of Shillin were upgraded to level 0. Their ongoing scientific research responsibilities were transferred to the municipal service centers of each settlement, with daily maintenance coordinated by the defense forces of each sector. Other observation stations on Pangaea were generally classified as levels 1 to 3, based on their operational maturity. Level 1 observation stations coordinated support for nearby level 2 and 3 observation stations. The observation stations on the Pandao seabed were currently all levels 4 and 5. Only the underwater observation stations at the edge of the continental shelf will be upgraded to level 3 by the end of the year, meeting the permitted threshold for regular mixed human and machine operations. The non-human department's Beeman Observation Station on the Ojibwe Peninsula will be upgraded to level 3 by the end of the year. Feiyu and most of her colleagues will be stationed on the Ojibwe Peninsula during the first quarter of the new year, conducting daily work at the Beeman Observation Station and reporting twice a month before returning to Shillin. Only Minister Jin and Administrative Assistant Niu will remain in the Shillin Highlands from the non-human department. Xiong Tenon will continue to work at the Mechanical Management Department headquarters on the Shillin Highlands. But most of his colleagues will be dispersed to various observation stations for their first quarter of the New Year deployments. Yindechin and Guhuasi have been busy with the expansion of the new settlement supporting facilities, one stationed at Rongsin Plain and the other at Rongai Plain. They had previously been less active in Shillin, and naturally resumed their work after the new year. However, their project team's liaison office is located in the local municipal service center, offering excellent working conditions. Feng Huer was particularly happy. Her family moved to the Rongsin Plain in the first half of the year, and in the second half, she was transferred to the Rongsin Municipal Service Center, where she became the Rongsin Publicity Branch, known as Director Feng. Now, she and Yindechin work at the service center every day. In her free time, she tends to the family plot and visits Rongsin's various locations. She's always beaming, her voice constantly blaring, We're Rongsin, Feng Situ and Hu Jing, a married couple, were assigned to settle in the northern part of the Rongai Plain mid-year. The remnant of the Kaimping mountain range descends into a gently sloping hilly plateau between the highlands and Rongai. Feng Situ's home is situated at the juncture of the hills and plains, with fertile soil at his doorstep and verdant mountains behind his windows. The view is truly breathtaking. Nearby is a commuter patrol station for the Rongai Division Defense Regiment, where Guje serves as defense chief. Commuting to and from work is safe, convenient, and short. After the lottery, Feng Situ brought Hua Jing to the merchant's house to chat. First, they wanted to learn about the intricacies of land preparation and building, and second, they wanted to inquire about the Rongai Plains weevils. Although he worked at a hospital and knew the weevils' danger level had been lowered, he felt a sense of unease. Feizai explained that the weevils were confined to the southern Rongai and warmer areas of the Ojibwe Peninsula, and that the northern part wouldn't survive the breeding season. Feng Situ was overjoyed. He had even more to say. I can't tell you yet, he had said before leaving, wanting to keep it a secret, but finally couldn't help himself. Jingjing will have more to do. Feizai had assumed that Hu Jing, who had been overseeing the infrastructure at Zio Kicking Nursery, had been seconded to another department like Feng Situ. But then Feng Situ said, his voice low and cheerful, I think, well, we're having a baby. We're having a baby. Feizai and Xiong Tenon were stunned, their mouths open, speechless for a moment. Xiong Tenon was the first to react, and he repeatedly congratulated Feng Situ and Hu Jing. Feizai almost went to support Hu Jing. What? I mean, Feng Situ drew a big circle, as if to encircle Feizai and Xiong Tenon in front of him, That fertility recommendation may be cancelled soon. After it's cancelled, Jing will definitely be busy. She is now alone in an empty garden, and no one talks to her at work. She is almost bored month after month. Everyone else is busy, and Jing told me that she is afraid of being out of touch with everyone. Situ, Jing was a little embarrassed. Fei Zai and Shang Tenin looked at each other. Fang Situ has a cheerful personality and a wide range of people. He always has some gossip. Besides, he is in Shilin Hospital and hangs out with Chen Yuanxiao every day. It is very likely that he knows some of the arrangements and progress of physical health through Chen Yuanxiao. Fei Zai and Shang Tenin have not discussed this gossip, but have just listened to it and taken it for granted. When the Fang family's new house was completed, the news was never officially announced. Hu Jing, like all the other members of the relocated families, drove her family's dirt bike every day, following the commuter patrol cars, to report for work at the Xiaoqing Nursery School on the Shilin Plateau. At the New Year's Eve dinner, Hu Jing came to talk to Fei Su and mentioned that she would continue to work at the Xiaoqing Nursery School after the new year. Fang Situ remained on indefinite secondment to Shilin Hospital, but during the first quarter of the new year, Chen Yuanxiao assigned him to rotate through the emergency medical services established at the 3 municipal service centers in Wao, Rongsan, and Rongai. Fang Situ was truly kind to Hu Jing. When discussing his post-New Year work schedule, even the delicious food at the banquet didn't taste good. Jing has to commute to Shilin alone for work. I won't be able to accompany her. When Shang Tenin went to pay New Year's greetings to the guards' tables, he and Fang Situ specifically asked Gu Jie to ask his commuter patrol team to take extra care of Hu Jing, who was driving alone, since few people were using Shilin after the New Year. Brother, I'll also have our Captain Wen take care of you all the way to Shilin, Xiao Wenfei, who was also at the table, said to Shang Tenin. Xiao Wenfei had now been promoted to Chief of Defense of the Wao Defense Division. The Deputy Defense Minister is Peng Feng, another familiar figure. He served as a squad leader during the Bimen Station bug incident in the first year of Luoyang. In the second year of Luoyang, after Qi Changgong and Xiao Wenfei were stationed at Wao, he was assigned to the rotating command post to Tongqiao Fortress. Now, he has returned to Shilin to assist Xiao Wenfei in the defense of Wao. Qi Changgong has been transferred back to Shilin, with a new title of Chief of Defense of the Shilin Highlands. A flurry of personnel changes were issued at the end of the year. Fang Fu Iong and Su Jingke, the instructors who supervised Shang Tenin and Fixu during their training camp at Kaolichi, were added to the rotating command post to Tongqiao Fortress on the Shilin Highlands. All of these arrangements were made in preparation for the upcoming Chuxiu. After 3 years, the Luoyang Construction Corps was renamed the Luoyang 1st Construction Corps during the banquet. This was because the 2nd Corps, carrying supplies from the alliance, was en route and had already entered Kaiying territory at the time of their banquet. In the 3 years since landing at Shilin, the Luoyang 1st Construction Corps has forged ahead with unwavering determination, General Shruni remarked. They cleared out a city for humans and prepared the beds to welcome those who came later. Chapter 315 They are coming. It was the last night of Luo Wang's 3rd year, and I believe many people stayed up late. What are you still doing? Feiyu walked out of the door. The porch lights in front of the door were bright. The exotic flowers had produced small red fruits in the past 2 days. The lights not only gathered light clusters on the surface of the small red fruits, but also illuminated the withered winter leaves around them clearly. The light climbed over the flower belt, along the lawn in front of the door, and melted into the crops farther away. Feiyu looked directly at Shang Tenin under the porch lights. After returning home from the big dinner, she had already walked around in the backyard, but she didn't see him come in. He was always checking the off-road vehicle in front of the door. Let me check the performance of the vehicle, he said. Is there a problem with the car? No problem, you go to sleep first. Shang Tenin raised his head. I don't know if there will be a New Year's holiday. I may be called over tomorrow. Our minister mentioned today that those who stay in Shilin after the New Year may have to help welcome the Chuxiu and do some moving and lifting work. I'm afraid I won't have time to check the car for you. You will change your route to Bimen after the New Year's holiday, moving and lifting, Feiyu repeated. It sounds like a lot of good things will be delivered. Shang Tenin smiled and sighed. It's very late, you should take some time to rest. There's no need to check the car. There is no problem, right? It's better to take a look, Shang Tenin said, continuing to walk around the car. Fei Zai, when you go to work from now on, If you leave our Wozai and there's no commuter rail, try not to change your route. If anything happens, don't land or get out of the car to investigate. Immediately contact the nearest guards. Got it? Feiyu walked over to the car. Tired of standing after a heavy meal at the conference, she leaned against it. Shuang Tian'an smiled, but didn't ask her to move aside, continuing to flit around. Feiyu's gaze followed him idly, mumbling, Minister Jin has already said so, and so has Guard Commander Xiao. Shuang Tian'an chuckled again. Give me the car. Will it be inconvenient for you to always reserve the service center's commuter car for work? No, Shuang Tian'an said nonchalantly. The service center introduced a commuter car to make things more convenient for everyone. Feiyu curled her lips. Just like when we took the public hovercraft in Mamen. Yeah, the two chatted about daily life when Feiyu's eyes suddenly flickered and she straightened up. Tian'an, look, in the deep blue night sky, an especially bright meteor shot out from among the stars. Shuang Tian'an raised his eyes upon hearing the voice, and then exchanged a glance with Feiyu. He unconsciously walked to her side, and the two stood side by side beside the car, both looking up. It was getting brighter and brighter, almost hovering in the night sky. That was the direction of Shilin Heights. They are coming. Shuang Tian'an received an overtime notice before dawn. He got up, washed up, and pushed the door open to go out. Feiyu, wrapped in a Boken star blanket with a little angel pattern, stood at the stairs on the second floor with colorful patterns. Why are you up too? Shuang Tian'an asked in surprise. Commuter bus. Feiyu raised her face woodenly towards the outside of the building, and her voice was wooden and toneless. The access control also notified me. The commuter bus was happily turning its roof lights downstairs, and the colorful light repeatedly swept across the house's protective shield and shone through the windows of the large corridor. I'm sorry, I didn't expect you to be up so early yesterday. Shuang Tian'an apologized immediately, took a step forward, and whispered, Go to sleep, I'm leaving, be careful on the road. Okay. Shuang Tian'an went down a step and looked back. Feiyu was returning to her room wrapped in a large blanket, so he quickened his pace. The lights of the commuter bus dimmed from the curtains, and Feiyu lay back in the warm quilt. After waiting for a while, the access control told her that an external vehicle had left the boundary of her seed farm, so she closed her eyes and continued to sleep. Shuang Tian'an turned from his own field onto this Hongnan Erjia commuter branch line, and then from the commuter branch line onto the Wao main sky train. Soon, a patrol team's Poseidon tank flew towards him. The tank made a turn and flew with a commuter bus. Happy New Year, Deputy Commander Shuang. Captain Wen, Happy New Year, Shuang Tian'an greeted with a smile. Are you out on patrol so early? Of course not. I promised our brother Xiao I'd pick Deputy Commander Shuang up along the way. Wen Qi was a charming man, always joking with those he knew, his voice always brimming with mirth. He coughed twice to straighten his throat. Tongqiao sent word they're closing down there at 6 o'clock sharp, and outsiders aren't allowed to approach. I'll take you there, but I have to leave quickly. They're being strict today. Shuang Tian'an couldn't help but laugh. The Chuxiu is carrying both supplies and people. I understand. Beneath the car, the snow-capped peaks of the Kangshan Mountain stretched out like frozen waves in the pre-dawn starlight. A distant glow in the horizon captivated their gaze. Against the increasingly familiar backdrop of the Luoyang sky, it was the distant visitor, the Chuxiu. Hi, Deputy Commander Shuang, I seem to have heard that, Afu, Fangfu Ion led you, when the Kaolichi were just assembled. Yes, our team called him Brother Afu at that time. Brother Afu, Wenqi laughed. Our Brother Afu is so excited this time. Do you know, what good news? I don't know, Brother Afu's fiancé is on the ship this time. She is here. Wenqi nodded his chin towards the ball of light and said enviously, she is right there. Really, it couldn't be more true. The Chuxiu entered the Kyongshu star system, and the news was passed on. It's absolutely true. We have made plans for him. After Mrs. Afu has passed the adaptation period, we will urge them to hold the wedding and we will go for a big meal. All the salary he saved over the years has been useless. That's great. No wonder I saw Brother Afu smiling the whole time during our dinner yesterday. I thought he was happy about his promotion, but there's such a happy event. Shuang Tian'an and Wenqi were familiar with each other, so he couldn't help but ask with a smile, what about you, Captain Wen, and Commander Su Jinkei from Tongqiao? He's my wife's instructor, I know, Old Su. We all call Ake Old Su now. Wenqi let out a hint of resentment, as if amused. We're not as lucky as Brother Afu. We don't even know what our family members are called. Captain Wen is a handsome man, so it will be. Shuang Tannen suppressed his smile and said soothingly. Wen Qi chuckled. Chatting all the way, they arrived at the Shilin Plateau. At the outer entrance of the Tongqiao fortress, tanks, off-road vehicles, and commuter buses from the 3 human settlements circled, flying through the wind-clearing zone in sequence, dropping off the passengers and leaving. Shuang Tannen waved goodbye to Wen Qi, unable to help but look up. In the night, that ball of light sat firmly embedded in the sky, vastly larger than Alpha and Beta at any given moment. What are they doing now? Everyone nearby almost looked up to take a look. We can't sleep anymore. Are they sleeping? Maybe they were watching us. That's much better than when we arrived. When the ship arrived, I had a chance to glance down at the ground, and my heart sank. That's right. Now that this group of people has arrived, the environment is much better. Chapter 316, The Night Frost Covers the Ridges. Today's entry process was a tedious one. After meticulous identity verification, those queuing to enter were each presented to a cylindrical robot from Shilin Hospital, which tightly wrapped their entire bodies for a lengthy cleaning and comprehensive testing procedure. Shuang Tannen changed his clothes and emerged from a cylindrical robot, his instructions following him like a shadow. Dear Deputy Director Shuang Tannen, please proceed immediately to the Highland Command Center to attend the preparatory meeting for the Chuxiu rendezvous. When driving from Tongqiao Fortress to the Highland Command Center, please adhere to the designated route. Effective immediately, all areas within the Shilin Protective Shield will enter Level 1 control. Non-official visits are strictly prohibited. No visitors will be accepted. Shuang Tannen went to his parking lot to retrieve his car. As soon as he started the car, he received a video call from Feiyu. Her background was dark, and the Boken blanket covered her head all the way to the back. 2 or 3 strands of hair escaped from the edge of the blanket, making her look like a small animal hiding in its nest in the cold winter. Are we there? We're here. Why are you awake again? Captain Wen's with me on the way, don't worry, Feiyu hummed softly, her shoulders drooping limply, sleepiness evident. No worries. You used the family car, and the asset system notified me again. Shuang Tannen chuckled softly. Sorry, tonight is really, you're sleeping again. Has anyone come down? Probably not. We're heading to the roundhouse for a preparatory meeting. Shuang Tannen instinctively glanced out the car window. Aside from the cars in front and behind him speeding through the darkness, the Shilin Plateau, where they once lived, was deserted. On the car's control panel, except for the route leading to the Roundhouse Command Center, all other routes were yellow no entry signs. Barely halfway through the night, everyone on Luoyang had been dining at the Mulila barracks. The jubilant and bustling scene had faded into solemn silence. Only a distant ball of light echoed in the sky. Feiyu had a slight interest in the Chuxiu, but sleepiness was clearly overpowering. Then you are busy, I will continue to sleep, she said vaguely, and laid down to sleep. Feiyu, before Shuang Tannen could finish the last sentence, she was quick and had already cut off the video call. He laughed, swallowed his words, and did not intend to make another video call. However, the car had not driven forward far, and there was another flash in front of his nose, and a large white gull flapped its wings and flew slowly. You are still calling me? What's the matter? With a blink of an eye, Feiyu's disheveled appearance covered the large white gull and appeared on the projection screen again. This time, she probably forgot and didn't even put on a blanket. Nothing, I just wanted to tell you that I'm not sure when I'll be home, so you should pay attention to the door control. I will. Tomorrow. Feiyu habitually pursued logic even though she was half asleep. She glanced at the window and changed her voice lazily. After daybreak, I'll find a way to spend the New Year's Day, then don't go far. Shuang Tannen looked at Earth in pajamas and said no more. Go to bed quickly, okay? The projection screen faded away. Before fading, Shuang Tannen caught a glimpse of her. She tucked into the quilt very quickly. The fields where his family harvested Chinese foxtail millet should be covered with frost at this time. Shuang Tannen secretly suppressed a smile, thinking that with Feiyu's personality, as long as she was alone, she probably wouldn't go anywhere, not even to visit Lin Suhicheng's house nearby. He just gave her a useless warning. This year's New Year's Eve celebration was different from previous years. The municipal service centers of the 3 settlements outside Shilin had already issued notices, suspending collective celebrations and prioritizing cooperation with Shilin to prepare for the arrival of the Chuxiu. Shuang Tanan had originally planned to take Feiyu to the Rongsan and Rongai settlements to explore the scenery and visit with their now scattered old neighbors. Unexpectedly, the roundhouse summoned Feiyu so quickly, leaving her without a single New Year's holiday. Feiyu would have to spend the holiday alone. Shuang Tanan thought about the food and drink supplies at home. Soon, the car arrived at the roundhouse. General Shruni and the senior commanders of the guards were already seated in the conference room. Shuang Tanan glanced at Hu Jing. The two exchanged glances and sat down to discuss the meeting. The Chuxiu has brought a batch of daily necessities, mechanical aids, weapons, and 4 space shuttles. Space shuttles, too? Everyone looked in surprise. They were truly rare. Among the personnel aboard the ship, 1/3 are guardsmen from the expanded Luoyang area, 1/3 are professional technicians and volunteer laborers recruited from the civilian population, and the final third are single women and some of the guardsmen's families. Everyone present couldn't help but glance at the guard seats, their faces filled with surprise. The guards officers, wearing purple flowered sleeves, sat at attention, their expressions perfectly controlled. Speaking of people, General Shroud turned specifically to Hu Jing. Ms. Hu, today you will be assisting the organization department in welcoming the women from the Second Corps and providing them with information about community housing. During their subsequent adaptation period, you will be responsible for providing comprehensive guidance and management in all aspects of their lives, studies, and training. Please be patient and meticulous, and pay attention to their physical health and emotional well-being. Okay, Hu Jing nodded solemnly. The organization department will be responsible for today's registration of the professional technicians and volunteer laborers. During the subsequent adaptation period, he confirmed the logistics and materials department's allocation division will be responsible for managing their housing and training. Yes, Hekan replied. The new guard troops will be received and subsequently trained by Qi Changgong, Chief of Defense of the Shilin Plateau. Yes, the Mechanical Management Department and the Guard Armed Forces will first fully integrate all data from the machine-assisted tool systems on the Chuxiu. Once the integration is complete, initiate the reception process. Everyone agreed. With a mission complete, General Shroud then contacted the Chuxiu's highest commander for this mission. Hello, Chuxiu. Hello, Luo Wang. In the Chuxiu's control room, General Rong Tai, adorned with ribbons and epaulets, led several officers in purple flowered collars and solemnly gave the highest alliance salute. General Shroud led the reception team behind him and solemnly returned the salute. After the meeting, everyone left the roundhouse and headed to their respective workstations. Is Feiyu at home alone now? Hu Jing, newly entrusted with an important task, remained gentle and calm as she walked with Shuang Tanan, chatting about family matters. Yes, he's sleeping, Shuang Tanan smiled, thinking that Feiyu should be sleeping soundly by now. Where's Situ? My sister-in-law came to work overtime late at night today. Situ must be worried. He must have just got home now, Hu Jing said helplessly. He insisted on sending me here. Shuang Tanan smiled and saw that outside the roundhouse, in the early winter mist, the light rain at 5:30 in the morning, which had not been seen for a long time, began to fall. Chapter 317, Moments Past. Dear Mr. Shuang Tanan and Ms. Yan Feiyu, we are delighted to receive greetings from the distant and beautiful Luoyang, a rising star in the Alliance. As one of the working organizations of your home planets, the Maman Asset Custody Center, we cannot help but feel immense pride in the courage and achievements of our planet's citizens who have journeyed to outer space, dedicated their youth, and built a beautiful new world. Regarding your inquiries regarding the maintenance of the King Shuli No. 2 property in Shisan District, we hereby provide the following faithful responses. The property is currently under the full 10-year custody of the Maman Asset Custody Center. Both the exterior structure and the contents are being meticulously and attentively maintained in accordance with the custody regulations and are in excellent condition. The custody annuity is being deducted as planned, and there are no outstanding payments to date. Due to current difficulties in information transmission, we anticipate that this reply will take some time to reach you. At this point, we deeply understand the anxiety you both expressed in your letter regarding the inconvenience of long-distance communication. We solemnly assure you that your trust is the highest compliment to us, and we will never let you down, no matter when or where. We will continue to serve you wholeheartedly. We wish you both good health, a happy life, and success in your work. May you rise to the forefront and reach new heights in your lives and careers. Yours faithfully, Maman Asset Custody Center. Feiyu read it twice, her eyes shifting to the last date. She mentally calculated that it was the end of the first year of luaoing. Now it was the beginning of the fourth year of luaoing. There was nothing she could do about it. She breathed a sigh of relief. At least there was a response. When the Chuxiu returned to the alliance during the Luoang homecoming festival, she had written the letter to the custodian, but she hadn't expected a reply. The private communication channel between Luoang and the alliance was still not open. This time, the Chuxiu returned to Luoang, and after a busy period on the highlands, many people's communicator mailboxes were suddenly filled with letters from their distant hometowns. What a pleasant surprise, such a bright day. Feiyu gazed out her office window at the vibrant flowers of the breeding farm on the southern slopes of Bimen, spreading all the way down the slope. Teacher Cha squatted at the entrance to the farm, having skipped lunch break to explore. Sung Ai, leaning against the railing in the middle of the Luode River Bridge, basking in the sun, hadn't come to discuss his plans for new plantings on his family's plot of land or his curiosity about the current situation within the Shilin Plateau. The Chuxiu's return was a major event. Its landing window mirrored the Shilin incident almost perfectly, and it was said it would be a fitting chapter in Luoang history books. On the first day of Luoang's fourth year, its fourth New Year's Day, the Chuxiu rejoiced, carrying the lofty ideal of supporting the construction of a new planet and returning to Luoang at that groundbreaking moment for humanity's first visit. Shuang Tenin and his men were bustling with activity, sending down supplies and personnel. When they returned to tell Feiyu about it, even the families of the Jili, the second Jia of Zhongnan, took the opportunity to listen to the Jiazhang's first-hand account of the scene. The first issue of the New Year's Luoyang Star newspaper, however, was unwilling to satisfy the curiosity of the few who had lived in a huddle on a desolate planet for 3 years. Perhaps the arrival of the Chuxiu, with its full crew, left the Star newspaper unsure where to begin. It simply offered a brief and forceful congratulations on the successful arrival of the Chuxiu 2nd Legion. It also announced that security procedures at the entrances and exits of the Shilin Highlands Bridge Fortress had been upgraded to the highest level, expected to be a regular practice for a long time to come, and thanked those working and living outside the highlands for their cooperation. For several days, the people of the 3 settlements outside the Shilin Highlands cast curious glances at Shilin. However, now, more than half a month later, everyone's anxieties have gradually subsided. The missions stationed outside the highlands are now well underway, and entering the Shilin Highlands is no easy task, so everyone has returned to their own affairs. It's said that the newcomers are, just like they were upon landing, gradually adjusting to life. This rumor was widely shared, but Fang Situ's version was the most accurate. His wife, Hua Jing, still attended to Zhao Kicking nursery daily, but she also had a crucial short-term assignment, helping Chun Yuanzhao manage the well-being of the single women and families of the guards in the 2nd Legion. She also spent much of the day stationed at the Fengaian and Huayan communities, where the women lived together, providing timely assistance. The Chuxiu brought twice as many members of the 2nd Legion as the 1st Legion, and the 4 major residential communities on Shilin Plateau had been expanded. Besides the women, the 2nd Legion's civilian recruits, specialized technicians, were assigned to the Qingayan community. Volunteer laborers were assigned to the Kayan community. That was all Feiyu had learned over the past month or so. She glanced at the other email notification that was sent to her communicator along with Mo Mang's letter, and made a video call. Tenon, I have to go back to Shilin headquarters this afternoon to report to Minister Jin on the progress of the current period. In addition, Minister Jin arranged for me to, she lowered her head, confirmed, and said, I will give a compulsory publicity course on field safety to new employees, and ask me to prepare. You can cancel your reservation for our WOW commuter car for tomorrow and the day after tomorrow, and I will go to and from get off work with you. Great. Shuang Tenin smiled and asked casually, safety publicity class? I seem to have heard that they are holding a concentrated class recently. What are you going to talk about, and do you have all the necessary materials? No. Feiyu glanced at him. Shuang Tenin didn't know why he wanted to laugh again. Feiyu looked almost the same as before submitting a community home visit report, calmly worried. You prepare first. I'll go home in the evening and we'll take a look together, okay? Feiyu nodded. When she was about to close the video call, she remembered one more thing. Tenin, do you have the letter from the Mom and Care Agency? I haven't opened it yet. Shuang Tenin looked at Feiyu. How is it? Is everything okay? Everything is fine, Feiyu paused and added, 2 years ago. Then it must be fine now, Shang Tanin smiled. Grandma Li also wrote to me and sent me a package of Mamang specialties. I was planning to take it home tonight and surprise you. Grandma Li is so nice. How is she? The letter said that she and the old lady she lives with get along well. Shang Tanin paused for a moment, a little sad. She also said that she doesn't plan to send the petition letter I wrote to the Zuli District Housing Office. She and the old lady decided to move to a welfare institution after the lease expires. They have already connected and the conditions are quite good. Maybe sending it would be useless. I didn't say it. Before they sent the letter, they both thought it would be of little use. That's fine, she said, sighing secretly. Grandma Li said this 2 years ago. I'm afraid that by now Grandma Li has already moved to the welfare institution and lived there for a long time. But there is nothing that can be done about it. Shang Tanin changed the subject and smiled again. Then I'll wait for you after get off work. If you're listening to this novel on a channel other than Fanfic World, it means they downloaded and uploaded it without effort. We cordially invite you to visit our channel, Mundo Fanfic Novelis. There you'll find the original version of this story and you can explore many other novels of various genres. We're waiting for you to immerse yourself in a world of incredible novels. Chapter 318 Dear Changgong. Dear Changgong, I thought I'd never see or hear from you again. You have no idea how mixed my feelings were when I received your letter. These past few days, I've been recollecting every detail of our acquaintance. These memories, once deeply buried in my heart, have now resurfaced, yet they have also reignited my painful confusion. Why can't I keep you? Is the Luoyang you described in your letter really that beautiful, so beautiful that you'd be willing to go there alone, even without your family, or even me? Perhaps I overestimated my place in your heart. Without you, my life has become dull and bleak. My family and friends are concerned about my condition, but they encourage me to face life positively. Recently, I met a man who is knowledgeable and witty, and we were surprised to discover that we share many common interests in life and art. Dear Changgong, I've been eagerly awaiting the official release of that promotional video you mentioned. This way, at least I can get a glimpse of your current situation and the emerging land you so deeply love through the screen, rather than just imagining your new life through the few words in your letter. I sincerely hope that everything goes as smoothly and beautifully for you and Luoyang as you said. I know you are always courageous and only report good news, not bad news. This is a precious quality of yours, yet it leaves all those who care and miss you with only silent concern. Memories have me drifting back into my old trance. Only after a friend reminded me did I suddenly realize that I had to send this letter. The Capital Star Planet Administration's deadline for receiving letters is within these days. Dear Changgong, I wish you great success in the path you have chosen. You have allowed me to experience the most beautiful love, in the most beautiful of times. Having met once brings comfort to the rest of our lives. I am already grateful enough for fate's allowing me to meet you, and I am willing to accept its taking you away. I believe there must be a reason for its arrangement. From now on, my thoughts and blessings are with you. Your devoted, long-lasting son, Qi Changgong. Since you left, we, especially your mother, have been constantly checking the calendar, counting the days until your message arrives. We are incredibly relieved to receive your letter today, knowing that you are doing well. Your mother is already packing her belongings, ready to embark on the ship when permission to visit her family is granted on Luoyang. All the chores have been taken care of, and she'll be there soon. The information I've heard from various sources, including the planetary administration and the families of other officers and soldiers in your Luoyang guard, doesn't seem to support your mother's immediate plans, but you know she's completely unconcerned. She's convinced that your Luoyang will eventually be ready for your parents to visit. So she's starting preparations now, diligently working on her shopping list. Everything is fine at home, don't worry. A while ago, your mother and I were on a trip to the capital planet and stopped by the headquarters of the patrol fleet where you previously served. We were warmly received by your former leaders and comrades. They all care deeply about your life and career. On the capital planet, we were fortunate to meet General Shroud's family and enjoy a delightful dinner together. The general's wife was gracious and amiable. And we envisioned a bright future for Luoyang. We were deeply proud of the general and all the brave and distinguished Luoyang men. My son, Changgong, do you remember the long late-night conversations we had in my study when you returned home after being selected for the Luoyang Planet Guard? You shoulder a heavy responsibility, are full of ambition, and your analysis is methodical and logical. Although your mother and I are deeply reluctant to part with you, We support you. A true man should have ambitions. Today, thanks to the extra care of the planetary administration and General Shroud's wife, I was able to see the new look of Luo Ang with this letter. Seeing my son's flourishing appearance, your mother wept with joy, and her heart was filled with joy. Luo Ang's terrain is harsh, life is primitive, and the hardships are undoubtedly inhumane. But we are steadily on track, and things will only get better. Your conversation with General Shroud's wife has also strengthened your mother's confidence. This business, the land, and the mountains are magnificent, everything is just as my son had hoped. Your mother and I also stayed briefly at the ancestral home in Maman during a previous trip, and I took the opportunity to handle the taxes and other matters related to your ancestral home. Your mother was concerned about your marriage, and hinted at some regrets about the Yan family girl. Her family has few relatives and friends, and during our stay, we didn't hear anything about them. As a parent, you understand your decision back then, and you naturally prioritize supporting your own child. But after all, our two families have an old friendship, and returning to our old home inevitably brings me a sense of guilt. I've considered visiting you several times, but have repeatedly given up. Thinking back on your promise not to burden others, it seems to make sense now. I told your mother that the past cannot be brought back, and we should both live happily. As for Miss Jo Fenkian, whom you invited to her home, she visited us once after you left, bringing gifts of fruits and vegetables, and asking about your situation in Luoyang. Your mother was very hospitable and accompanied Miss Jo on her trip to Gushan. We haven't seen each other since. But I know for sure that Miss Jo already has a good partner and is discussing the wedding date. My son, Changgong, people meet by chance, but if not, then let it go. Moreover, geographical barriers make it difficult to arrange a gathering, which is a common thing for ordinary people. My son, be at ease, and don't be uneasy. You are alone in Luoyang, and your parents can't help you with everything. You must learn to take care of yourself and make friends with your companions, so that you can go through the difficulties together. Your mother and I are looking forward to meeting you. Your father and mother who love you forever. Qi Changgong lowered his eyes and read the two letters. In the distance, at the Mulila Pass, snowflakes were flying, and new recruits were shouting and training. No mistake, one poem, one post, one content, 1619, one book, one bar. Take a look. Captain Qi, the defense chief Guja of the Rongai division is here to visit, the access control announced. Qi Changgong had just opened the door when Guja, a large bag slung over his shoulder, strode in. As soon as the door closed, he shook himself with unruly abandon and burst into a clatter. Aki, why are you snowing here already? It's freezing. How about you talk to the general and have the snow stop? Qi Changgong glanced sideways. Of course not, Guja said with a familiar grin. Pull a chair for me. It's too late to have dinner with you. Captain Xiao Wang will be gathering soon, and it's a shame to keep the new guys waiting. I'll take a break and chat with you. It's been ages since we last met. The chair across from Qi Changgong slipped out silently, and he stood up, pulling out a colorful square jar from its storage compartment. Oh, I haven't seen that before. What's that? Guja, having just sat down, immediately craned his neck and stood up. My family gave it to me, one can for each of you brothers. I don't know what it is, but it's a specialty of Gushan. Qi Changgong threw it over directly. Chapter 319 The Most Beautiful Time. Okay, we brothers have the same idea. I made this trip just to bring you some specialties from my hometown. Guja stuffed the square jar into his bag quickly, rummaged around, and took out a round jar from his bag. He threw it to Qi Changgong as usual, and continued to dig. I'll leave the share for Ali and Xiao with you. When they come back to Shilin, you can give it to them on my behalf. If they have anything for me, you can keep it for me too. I've become a transit station. Qi Changgong snorted, and took it all in one go. There's nothing we can do. Several of us have been sent out, and you're the only one staying in the base camp. When they come back to report on their work and receive things and people, they all come to you. Guja was relieved, sat down again, and glanced at him. Aki, you're not in high spirits. Sending letters and local specialties today is not enough to make you happy. Is it that this group of new brothers is difficult to lead? Qi Changgong waved his hand. There are so many people, and everyone can't wait to go out. There's nothing else. I think they are all bored on the ship. Guja clicked his tongue and looked out the window. They are so energetic in the ice and snow. Captain Xiao Wang is the same. He was so excited when he went with me to visit Rongai, and his eyes were shining. Well, it's time for you to go. Qi Changgong stopped Guje again and said seriously, they are the first group to go out for a visit. Be careful on the road and don't show off too much, I know. As Ao has even sent out a manual, Guje patted his knees, but did not stand up. He came over and said seriously, Aki, I see that you still have something on your mind. Qi Changgong raised his eyelids and looked over. Guje was not to be fooled by his tricks. He shrugged his shoulders and said to himself, in fact, when the Chuxiu entered the Kyongshu star system and we received the list of dependents accompanying the troops, you said that you had let it go. Why are you not happy now? You see, I don't have any dependents accompanying the troops. We brothers are just miserable companions. He couldn't stop talking and became half envious and half jealous. Don't look at those dependents who are happy. They will be worried to death in a while. The brothers don't have many places to go during their off-duty. Now that we have settled a home for them, it will be a perfect place for them to go. Don't we take turns to ask for money from them? He added, in fact, it's too early to come now. It's not stable yet. Qi Changgong was silent for a while, turned on the communicator. Let me see it for you. Guje took a look and exclaimed, wow, then quickly shut his mouth, opened his eyes wide and read 10 lines at a glance, for fear that Qi Changgong would take it back. After reading it quickly, he read it again from the beginning in silence, looked up at Qi Changgong with a stern face, and suddenly shouted, ah! Bah! Qi Changgong was frightened by him. What are you doing, Agong? Guje smiled shyly. Look, people think so highly of you, what else do you have to regret? He saw that Qi Changgong turned his face away and did not say a word, but he had just read the private message, and he could not let his brother down for being frank, so he became very frank as well, and his speech immediately became more straightforward, and he even dared to quote directly and analyze it, you made me know the most beautiful love. Guje trembled 3 times without concealing his feelings. In the most beautiful time. Agong, that's good, it means that the girl's most beautiful time has passed. You see, we don't have to make things difficult, we can find someone more beautiful. Qi Changgong couldn't help but frowning. If you can't persuade people, just leave quickly, just go, just go. Guje touched his face embarrassedly. He walked to the door, turned around and raised his eyebrows, and said, Agong, it's okay to relax. There is a sentence that is not easy to say, but in fact everyone understands the truth. Look, aren't there a lot of single girls here? It's not easy to say, and you still say it. Qi Changgong choked and shouted, his expression became serious, this matter is not easy to say. There are so many single men and women in this group. Whether it is them or us, the discipline is strict at this stage, of course we have to enforce strict discipline. I've already sent word to Arongai Defense Corps. Guje finished his serious words, then chuckled, his concern evident. Captain Xiao Wang, I'm taking him away. If you have anyone else you want to let out for a stroll later, feel free to do so. Ali, Aka, and the others will treat them well. Go away, Qi Changgong said, not even having time to open the door for Guje. Go away. After Guje left, he sat down, his mood suddenly gone. The second corps at the mountain pass was still training in the snow, their cheers deafening. Even from a distance, one could feel the cool yet warm energy of sweat steaming in the wind and snow. Qi Changgong stood up and strode out. Shuang Tanin suggested that Feiyu give more examples. He knew that if Feiyu only taught theoretical knowledge, she would read the latest edition of the field regulations for personnel of the Shilin Highlands from beginning to end, which would make the course seem rigid and difficult for new recruits to absorb. Feiyu silently pondered the technique Shuang Tanin had taught her at dinner last night. He kept talking about the last-minute speech she'd given at her graduation inheritance class. Even after all these years, he still remembered it vividly. Feiyu could repeat that lesson, interspersed with stories, and it would surely be humorous and lively. Feiyu stopped the car and saw a formation of people in dark brown war clothes marching in an orderly formation toward the main entrance of Luo Wang Memorial Hall. They must be the students attending today's lecture. She gestured over the field service regulations one last time, marked several examples for her to review, and got out of the car. After the 2nd Legion landed, they began with adaptation training inside the enclosure and gradually transitioned to field service, much the same process Feiyu and her colleagues had gone through. However, compared to Feiyu and her colleagues, their process was more systematic and less adventurous. The class Feiyu was presenting today was a series of introductory courses developed by the Roundhouse Command Center, coordinating the work of various departments within the 1st Legion. The venue is the Luoyang Memorial Hall. The 2nd Corps arrived in batches for a class in to view the historical materials on display, gaining a quick and intuitive understanding of Luoyang's past construction work. This series of courses itself was to become a classic. Not only should it be open to the entire 2nd Corps for learning and experience, but it should also be stored in a memorial hall and passed down as a physical testimony of historical education. Feiyu was now somewhat intimidated by Director Mo, who was truly eager to take everything. Director Mo had hosted a banquet at her home, and later, when his own new house was completed, he also invited Shuang Tenan and Feiyu back, becoming quite familiar with her. In the reception room in front of the hall, they chatted enthusiastically in the minutes before class began. This historical research expert, working in the Festival Affairs Department of the Calendar Department, not only oversaw the daily operations of the Memorial Hall, but also his regular duties. Over the past 3 years, he and several colleagues had gradually expanded the Memorial Hall, which initially consisted of a single plot of land and 2 or 3 specialized branches, into a solemn and imposing structure. It now served as a key venue for the 2nd Corps training and classes within the Shilin Cage. Chapter 321st Lesson. Since the new year, most of Director Mo's colleagues have been dispersed to the 3 settlements outside the protective shield of the Shilin Plateau, assisting the Municipal Service Center. Their primary focus is intensively researching geographical, climate, and astronomical data for each district, and collaborating with the Ministry of Agriculture to revise the agricultural and mulberry tables for each family farm. Director Mo is one of the few 1st Legion members still working on the Shilin Plateau after the new year. It's been very busy. Classes are coming every day, and we even had a group of female students yesterday. Principal Hui from the nursery came along too. She's busy too, and has been here several times lately. Feiyu smiled faintly. Fang Situ had been borrowed by Chun Yuanzhao for so long that everyone had forgotten he was actually the principal of the nursery. If Fang Situ heard Director Mo openly referring to his Jingjing as Principal Hui, he wouldn't know whether he would be pleased or disappointed. Does anyone have a supervisor for today's class? Should I wait for him? Yes, no need. Director Mo waved his hand, looking at the course schedule. This class is from Group 92 of the Caring Community. The supervisor for the male students currently living in Qingayan and Caring is Director Hekan of the Logistics and Materials Department's Allocation Division. He's been incredibly busy these days and doesn't have the time to accompany them. Besides, they're all big, strong men, so there's no need for them to accompany you. Oh, by the way, Mrs. Shuang, you have to write a summary after class. Did you see this line on the invitation? Yes, that was the line Feiyu wanted to ask about. What do you want me to write? Director Mo smiled and said casually, probably just good class discipline. If you notice any instances of poor performance, write something down. It was almost time, so Feiyu agreed, said goodbye to Director Mo, and headed towards the main classroom. The dark brown work clothes under the hood represented volunteer labor. Director Mo had just revealed that the 2nd Legion had been replenished with a significant number of young and able-bodied personnel, representing a diverse range of social backgrounds within the alliance. After their adjustment period, they would likely be assigned to various departments to perform basic tasks. Feiyu appeared at the doorway and glanced inside. 100 people were packed together. Upon seeing her, they all stood up and shouted in unison, "Hello, instructor." Their voices were so resonant that they filled the classroom with a hum. Feiyu nodded briefly and walked directly to the podium. "Good afternoon, everyone. Please take a seat." She quietly scanned the crowd. The men, uniform but with diverse facial features, seemed to hail from various planets across the alliance. Their common denominator was their robust physiques. It seemed that pre-departure training at Kaolichi and the extended stay within the moonshade of Luoyang, the untamed planet, had tempered their arrogance. Even though Feiyu's appearance had caused some to widen their eyes for a moment, it quickly subsided. Now, no one showed any sign of surprise. Everyone sat perfectly upright, their expressions serious. But that wasn't enough. Today's topic is wilderness safety, Feiyu began. Self-introduction? No need. The speaker's name was displayed high in the center of the classroom's large screen, clearly visible to everyone. What was there to introduce? Deputy Director of the Safety Division of the Non-Human Lifeform Research Department, Chief of the 2nd Division of the Central and Southern Wao Plains, the 1st Settlement, Level 1 Operations Commander of the Luoyang Global Observatory System, Area 6, 13th Zone, Ashiri Peninsula, and Area 19, Banpang Sea, and the discoverer and namer of the species, the Tide-born woodlice. Feiyu. Feiyu didn't even glance at the pile of detailed and eye-catching introductions overhead and got straight to the point. Have you been to the Faith Hall? She glanced at everyone, not waiting for their answers. We will all go in the future. Safety is one of the dividing lines between life and death, luck, too, but Feiyu felt that was another topic, unnecessary to digress. The classroom was well disciplined, and the class was completely silent. No one can give anyone the perfect experience. I hope everyone will take it seriously, read every rule and regulation you receive carefully, and make sure you don't overlook any of them. They are a collection of previous experience and a basic guarantee for survival and safety. Go back and read them more, she said calmly. Don't forget what I said, it's possible, Feiyu, I couldn't have any more experience. If you've read the history of the development of new stars, you'll know it contains many adventure stories. I'll retell a few of them, hoping they'll be of some inspiration. The students were dull. Shuang Tenen's suggestion that storytelling could liven up the classroom atmosphere wasn't there. They stared silently at the podium, their faces devoid of any thoughtful expression. Of course, this didn't hinder Feiyu's steady recitation of the story. What did you learn from this? She glanced around the room. No one answered. But a few rolled their eyes, perhaps with some thoughts. They glanced around briefly, then decided to remain silent. Perfect. One poem, one post, one content, one book, one forum. Very good. Feiyu actually quite enjoyed this. She wasn't a fan of interaction at all. According to my analysis, most of the heroes who died tragically fell just as life was about to begin. She stared at the others, and from their expressions, she could sense that wasn't what they were originally trying to say. Perhaps they were originally meant to criticize the protagonist's actions. Everyone inevitably makes mistakes, and mistakes lead to negative consequences. In this process, the most important thing isn't regret or self-criticism, but resolution, and continued resolution. She paused. She wasn't one for endless pontificating. The lecture was almost over, and the class summary was due soon, so she took another look at the class's discipline. Meanwhile, she gave them some time to reflect. No one's face was animated, it was impossible to tell how much they had absorbed. Feiyu examined them calmly. Her gaze was powerful. They sat at attention, waiting for her gaze to hover over them before passing by. Those who had just been trembling with excitement about answering were probably embarrassed by their incoherent answers, especially since their posture was stiff. Now, with their sturdy shoulders, they stood as obedient as stone statues, no longer wanting to communicate. One of them, as if unable to bear the teacher's gaze, obediently lowered his eyelids. Lack of spirituality. Such a dull class. Feiyu surveyed the room and spoke in a deep voice. The people in the story actually fell only a few meters from the cave entrance, or perhaps just an angle away from the village. So, in the face of extreme hardship and complete hardship, tell yourself to be confident and persevere, because that's not the end of the world yet, that's just the hinterland. When you're really at the end of the road, tell yourself that you still need to keep trying, because life is already visible at the next turn. Persevere until your luck runs out, not your will. Chapter 321 Flower Avenue. How was class? Shuang Tenen asked when he came to pick her up. That's it, Feiyu stated calmly. I'll give you an extra 100 contribution points at the end of the month. Yeah, Shuang Tenen nodded and smiled. Okay. They stopped by the nearby memorial garden to visit Jeguanking's grave. How is Mianmian? Any news? No. Shuang Tenen placed white roses around the tombstone and shook his head. The crew on the Chuxiu has no news of her. If she hadn't returned to her hometown, she should still be in the capital star, Guanqing. Mrs. Je is now in the alliance. Her life will be more stable than here, he whispered to the tombstone. It's been our 4th year. The Second Legion came, and we all moved out. We are living better than before. He lowered his eyes and was silent for a while. Your home is in the northeastern 1st Division of Wao. Decheng and Huaisi personally supervised its construction. When Feiyu and I were free, we made a string of flower bells and hung them on your door. Feiyu also asked the captain of the northeastern 1st Division to visit your home more often. Guanqing, bless Mrs. Je to be healthy and happy. Feiyu stood quietly with Shuang Tenen. She looked at the tall memorial tower. Above the tower, the winter sky showed a sparse, dry and cold clear white, extending to the horizon. Our department's focus for the first half of the year is setting up an underwater observation station in this vast sea. Her thoughts drifted away. From the waters east of the Ojiori Peninsula to the edge of the Jeshi Basin. Minister Jin said that if we do this well, he'll take on more areas. Xiong Tanin looked at her. I'll give you the best equipment. Feiyu's lips curled slightly. The seabed isn't a big deal. Now that more people have arrived, Minister Jin is planning to ask the dome for more people. He told us all to write sincere budget reports for our subordinate positions. He said that if we can't get enough professional technicians, more volunteer labor would be fine. Minister Jin, don't you know? Every department thinks the same way. Xiong Tanin's eyes shone with a hint of laughter. So we're here for class. It had been a long time since she'd been back to Shilin. The adjusted breeze from the hood fanned against her cheek, reminding Feiyu of the air currents when she and Xiong Tanin had sat and chatted against the west wall of the dome. Naturally, she recounted some interesting stories from her department. K. Lixiang, Chief K hasn't returned to report yet, but I saw Minister Jin received another invitation to speak, and they plan to send Chief K. Minister Jin said, if you want something, you have to contribute first. Minister Jin is very wise. Aren't you scheduled for a class? Feiyu asked curiously. Someone in my department has a class, and I'm not scheduled. The two of them have been working separate shifts lately, adjusting to the changes in their lives and work after the new year. They've both been coming home late, and Luo Ping, the latest, has been catching up on the harvest. When they meet, they talk mostly about their harvests and upcoming spring planting plans. It's been a while since they've had such a leisurely chat, so Xiong Tanin decided to share a few more words about his own work. The Chuxiu has brought a summary of the Alliance's latest technological advances in intracavity manned robots. I've been studying that material lately. Are there any from Donglan? Not mentioned. Feiyu raised an eyebrow. Oh, could it be that their alma mater hasn't caught up with this technological trend yet? Let's go. Xiong Tanin checked the sky. The two men took another bouquet of white roses and presented it to the guardsman who died in the insect incident. They bowed at the foot of the memorial tower and walked side by side out of the garden. A road has been built. Feiyu gazed out. The treetops peaked, and below, roses bloomed over the winter. The tree-lined avenue wound through the wilderness, leading to the Faith Hall. Many corners had changed, a feeling that filled her, even though she lived in a remote area. Last year, after Minister Jin announced the New Year's field mission, our entire department went to the Faith Hall over there. She gazed. After Je Guanking's funeral, on a sunny day, the guards also held a funeral for the fallen soldier. Since then, white roses have been planted around the Faith Hall, where the coffin rested. Later, as more naturalized breeding experiments were completed, pink, red, yellow, blue, and black roses were added. Pure, lovely, passionate, sad, calm, solemn, all human emotions are here, used to accompany eternal faith. Yu Maynor, Deputy Director of the Propaganda Department's Manuscript Department, once a representative of the new generation of the Alliance Poetry Association and a talented wandering poet, once chanted these words for the roses in the Faith Hall. And whenever people embark on important missions to unexplored places, they habitually pray at the Faith Hall. We will eventually carry the faith tempered in this life, accompanied by our brothers and loved ones, and journey there. Now is not the time yet. Yu Maynor wrote these words at the intersection leading from the Faith Hall to the Memorial Garden. A few years ago, Minister Jin led his staff on a routine visit to the Faith Hall, as the non-human ministry's observation station was about to be extended to Banpangay. Back then, Feiyu had seen the tranquil tree-lined avenue from the Faith Hall. The wild path that Xiong Tanin and his men had taken carrying the coffin that day had become a straight, wide, and flower-lined avenue. The path from the Faith Hall to the Memorial Garden was usually seldom traveled, but fortunately, it hadn't been necessary for the past 2 years. Only the flowers bloomed silently in the wild wind. At this moment, she looked again from this end of the Memorial Garden and retracted her gaze. When they first arrived at the plateau, everything was in order, which was completely different from when they first arrived. Let's go. Xiong Tanin turned sideways and took her to the parking lot. When the car was halfway up, Feiyu looked down and saw people in dark brown work clothes pouring out of the gate of the memorial hall. Tanin, those are the students I just taught. They have finished their tour, she said. Xiong Tanin glanced down and saw that the open space in front of the hall was crowded with people lining up. He said, then they should also see what the Changja cake you made looks like. You just taught a class, and Mo Xiu will definitely introduce it. Feiyu thought about it and knew that Director Mo would definitely pick out her pictures and tell the students, "Look, this was made by Instructor Yan who taught you." "Yes," she said helplessly. Xiong Tanin smiled. After February of the 4th year of Luo Wang, the new professional technicians of the 2nd Corps were assigned to various departments after their initial adaptation training. Xiong Tanin was not assigned to give training and guidance classes to the 2nd Legion like Feiyu was some time ago, nor did he participate in the 2nd Legion's outdoor activities like Gujia. In addition to daily affairs, he led his team to immerse himself in the #1 research and development task. The various conceptual parts drawings that the Chuxiu brought back when it returned to the Alliance last time were almost all delivered this time according to his requirements, which kept him busy. However, the Mechanical Management Department assigned 80 professional technicians this time. As a management cadre staying at the headquarters, he was ordered by the department head to interview each of them and write an initial interview review for each newcomer. This was the first step in launching the new employee training program of the Mechanical Management Department. In the first week of March, the robot assistant arranged a large number of interviews. After lunch, he hurried back to the office as usual, nodded to the robot assistant, opened the list of interviews for today that the assistant had prepared long ago, and quickly browsed through it. Chapter 322 New Technician. "Come in." The robot assistant opened the office door and walked sideways to let someone in. Xiong Tanin looked over from behind his desk, his surprise evident. He stood up and took a few long strides around the desk to greet him. Qi, the new technician in a dark blue overall, stood at the door, looking Xiong Tanin up and down. In a second, a smile broke out on his face. He said loudly, "Captain Xiong, Yu Qi, an engineer from the maintenance division of the Mechanical Management Department, reports to you." Xiong Tanin smiled in surprise and immediately waved away the robot assistant. They were the only two left in the office. He stretched out his hands, almost wanting to hug her, but immediately thought of retracting them and shaking his head. "We can't have close contact yet. The guidance regulations cannot be violated." Yu Qi just smiled. "Hurry up and sit down." Xiong Tanin pushed out the chair and asked without delay, "Qi, why are you here too?" Reporting to Commander Xiong. "Hey, Qi, don't call me that." Xiong Tanin was overjoyed and hurriedly stopped Yu Qi. "We haven't seen each other for many years. Are you deliberately being so formal?" "Tanin, I'm not being formal." Yu Qi lowered his shoulders at this moment, and dispersed the respectful reporting posture. He said in a light-hearted tone, "When I was training in Kaolichi, we were taught that when we come to Luoyang, we should call everyone commander." "That's for sure. You also went to Kaolichi for training." Xiong Tanin called again, sit down quickly." "When I saw your name just now, I couldn't believe it. I thought it must be someone with the same name as you. I didn't dare to think it was really you." "Qi, why are you in Luoyang?" "I came here because I encountered recruitment." Yu Qi smiled. "You are here too." Let's not talk about myself first." Xiong Tanin waved his hand, and then asked cautiously, "Is your family okay?" "What will happen to your family if you come? I remember you said you have a grandmother at home." "After I graduated and started working, my grandmother was taken in by my aunt." "That's good. I left the money I earned from working after graduation to my grandmother. I thought I could shine anywhere, and there are many opportunities in Xinxing, so I just wanted to take a gamble. I didn't expect that you would be here so early." Yu Qi glanced at Xiong Tanin, then looked around his office, and teased, "Tanin, you're rich." "What do you mean rich?" "I was drafted here and had to come. You know, I used the Alliance education subsidy when I was a child." Xiong Tanin cared about his old friend, and put his own affairs aside in a few words, and hurriedly reminded Yu Qi, "Qi, we have only been in this place for a little over 3 years. Except for Shilin and the 3 settlements outside, other places are actually full of uncertainties." "I know, I talked about it in class." Yu Qi suddenly joked, "Speaking of settlements, Tanin, are you married and have a family?" Oh. Xiong Tanin uttered "oh" 3 times in a row. Facing Yu Qi gaze, he was momentarily unsure how to respond. He awkwardly touched his face and laughed. "Yes, my wife." "Oh, you might know her too." "Who?" "That day, I returned home, and it was already dark." "Madam, you've worked hard," Xiong Yan said, bouncing over to her. "Madam, my husband hasn't come back yet. Everything is normal at home today. The Agricultural Guidance Center sent a notice asking us to turn to land again. I've tentatively scheduled it for the weekend." Since you and your husband are home, you can always guide me. Of course, if you feel the weekend isn't appropriate, okay, Feiyu interrupted Shuang Yan's rambling, walking towards the kitchen and instructing, go prepare the table is all ready. Shuang Yan was speaking when Feiyu and Shuang Yan stopped in their tracks. The gate had been notified, the commuter bus had entered the airspace over her plot of land. I'm ready. Shuang Yan quickly finished the second half of the sentence and raised his tone happily. Sir's back. Feiyu had just walked a few steps into the gate, and now she turned around and walked out to wait. Shuang Yan quickly followed and cleverly turned on the porch light again. Not long after, the commuter car with the familiar rotating light ring on the roof flew over from the distant land and landed at the door. I'm back, Feiyu said. Sir, you have worked hard. Shuang Yan waited for Feiyu to finish speaking, and hurriedly followed suit. Why are you waiting outside? There's a bit of night wind. How long have you been waiting? Shuang Tanan walked up the steps quickly. Feiyu opened her mouth, raised her eyes, and glanced at Shuang Yan. 1 minute and 3 seconds, Shuang Yan hurriedly continued. Feiyu curled her lips and looked at Shuang Tanan. Shuang Tanan laughed. Feiyu was always dissatisfied with the personality of this robot. Shuang Yan initially planned for the considerate type. Feiyu had said more than once that it was too delicate. He thought about watching it for a while. If he really wanted to change it to a dull and honest one, he was afraid that a master and servant would look at each other in silence, which would always be too lonely. Let's watch it for a while. I just got back too. Shall we go have dinner first? Shuang Yan was quite smart. After greeting the male host, he pursed his lips and gave all the chances to speak to the female host. Yet, Shuang Tanan handed the commuter bag to Shuang Yan and asked him to go downstairs to pack it. He could no longer suppress his joy and said, Feiyu, guess who I met today? Feiyu turned her head to look at him. General Shruni? Did he designate the good place you like for your outer experimental field? No. Shuang Tanan shook his head repeatedly. Then tell me. A smile graced his brows, his eyes sparkling. Yu Qianzhen. Who? Yu Qianzhen? Feiyu pondered, trying to recall the name. Do you remember Yu Qianzhen, a classmate of ours from the Donglan Mechanical Research Institute? Shuang Tanan glanced at Feiyu's expression and reminded her immediately. He was the exterior designer in Department C. We were in the same class. He designed the exterior design for the sunflower picking project you were working on. Oh, and then you moved to the East District, and he moved dorms too. He happened to be on the same floor as you, diagonally across from you. Feiyu thought for a moment after hearing this. Oh, she nodded. She had been in Luoyang for over 3 years, concentrating on eating, allocating land, and building a house. Lately, she'd been watching sea monsters. Suddenly recalling campus life in the irradiated zone of the Alliance civilization felt so distant, almost hazy. It's that Yu Qianzhen. He's also in Luoyang. Shuang Tanan's voice was filled with joy. Feiyu glanced at him, remembering how close they seemed back then. That Yu Qianzhen has also come to Luoyang. Does that mean he has no one left at home? No. For a moment, Shuang Tanan almost reached out to cover her. He smiled helplessly and explained carefully, Qianzhen still has an aunt and grandmother. His grandmother used to live with him, but later he got a job and his grandmother didn't need to take care of him anymore, so she moved in with his aunt. Oh, Feiyu nodded, a little curious. Why was he drafted? It's not a draft. Qianzhen and his group were recruited. Feiyu was really curious. At the beginning of this year, the Second Legion arrived. They, the old people, had been watching from outside the Shilin cover, at most hearing rumors. They only knew that the Second Legion was mainly composed of single people, both men and women, divided into technicians and laborers. The background diversity was richer than their original composition of couples and families, but they really didn't know that the Second Legion's source path was different from theirs. Chapter 323, A Very Well-Hosted Guest. During dinner, Feiyu and Shuang Tanan kept discussing Yu Qianzhen. Ours is a level 1 conscription order. Whoever receives it must come. Qianzhen told me that shortly after the Chuxiu returned to the Alliance, the recruitment order for the Luoyang New Star construction project was circulated throughout the Alliance. It listed the requirements and benefits, and anyone who met the requirements could apply. Qianzhen received an invitation to apply, and he said that these professional technicians were selected from those invited. So, volunteer workers don't need an invitation. Anyone can apply, anyone who meets the requirements. Qianjin said that the professional technicians and volunteer workers received pre-departure training together in Kaolichi, and he met some volunteers. Besides the basic educational requirements, they come from all walks of life, as long as they're willing to endure hardships and are in good health. Feiyu was most concerned about one thing. Does their recruitment order specify a term of service? No, their recruitment order doesn't mention a term, Shang Tanin said after a pause, looking up at her. Qianjin said that when the recruitment order was announced throughout the alliance, it sparked a luoyang craze for a while. The recruitment order was written with great enthusiasm. The Alliance Star Network flashes daily. Are you willing to spend your life doing one thing, just like them? Are you willing to create a beautiful new world with your own hands? Are you willing to participate in a cause that will be passed down through the ages? Yu Qianjin said that he accepted the invitation on impulse. Many of them knew that it would be difficult to return once they came. But the recruitment order says that there will be home leave when the time is right. Eat. Don't forget to eat. Feiyu raised an eyebrow and commented, it's pretty much the same as what our recruitment order says. Shang Tanin sipped the nutrient solution and looked at Feiyu, his eyes revealing guilt. I'm not homesick yet. Feiyu glanced at him and saw him chuckle softly, so she urged, let's talk about Yu Qianjin. Qianjin has been assigned to the maintenance division of our mechanical management department as an engineer. It's a perfect major. We met today, and now he knows we're a family. Feiyu pondered for a moment, thinking it was okay, and continued eating. Feizai, Shang Tanin asked with a smile, what do you think about inviting Qianjin to our home this weekend? Sure. But can he leave Shilin at will now? No problem. Their adaptation training has reached the stage of walking out of the shield. Qianjin teamed up with some people a few days ago and was taken to Rongxin to visit Dechen's community. It seems that it was Mrs. Yin who helped to receive them. Now Qianjin has joined the mechanical management department, and our department will gradually take over the arrangements for his subsequent adaptation activities. I will report to the department, and there is no problem in taking him to visit our community on the weekend, Shang Tanin said. However, we must ensure that he has good food and drink, and send him back to Shilin safely. Then what should we make for him to eat? Feizai asked immediately. Just kidding, Shang Tanin laughed. Qianjin and the others' diet still has to follow the current diet requirements in Shilin City. I've already thought about it, so you don't have to worry about it. I'll order food from their community canteen that day and take it home when I pick up Qianjin. He won't mind these things. Sounds like a very easy guest to entertain. Feiyu grumbled, and said cheerfully, then let's do it on the weekend. It happened to be a nice weekend. Shang Tanin drove the dirt bike away early in the morning to pick up Yu Qianjin. Feiyu asked Shang Yan to clean up the front and back of the house. Since it was still early, she sent him to plow the soil as planned and he would be back for lunch. She went to the backyard by herself, thinking that Shang Tanin always remembered to trim the old stems of the grass rose hedge on weekends. He might not be free today as he was running back and forth, so she took out the scissors, walked around the grass rose hedge, and roughly cut a few times to help him do it. Then, as per her weekly routine, she read the data collected from the observation deck on the Huangji River, climbed the bridge, crossed the river, went for a walk in the woods on the north bank, and went up to her tree house to look out over her fields. After passing the Qianping Mountains, this area is all plains. Qianjin, look, it's winter now, and the crops on the land have basically been harvested, and the new ones haven't been planted yet. If you come back to visit in the future, you'll see a variety of grains and vegetables, each one different, and the scenery will be even better. It's not like now, it's all bare and looks a bit desolate, Shang Tanin explained the whole way from the off-road vehicle. Yu Qianjin tilted his head and smiled. Does your family also farm? What do you farm? Last year we planted apple, millet, and quinoa, all local varieties. This year we plan to add a new variety, quinoa. In addition to quinoa, we still have some seeds left at home. I'll show you what they look like later. You are so professional in farming, there's no way, we have to farm according to the regulations, Shang Tan said. Qianjin, maybe you will have to learn it in the future. The land is divided among family units, right? Will we live alone like you in the future? Yu Qianjin inquired. I don't know about that yet. Shang Tanin looked over with amusement, raised his hand and hit Yu Qianjin on the shoulder with a punch. With so many people coming here, all aspects of life must be arranged step by step for everyone. What are you worried about? I'm not worried, Yu Qianjin said embarrassedly, pointing outside the car window. It's just that as soon as I arrived in Luoyang, I saw new things every day. It's a bit overwhelming. I had this feeling at the beginning. Shang Tannen couldn't help laughing. It's different from many planets in our alliance. Primitive and novel, right? He looked out the window with a little emotion. When I landed on this planet, I knew I was an outsider. But I also knew I had to find a stable place. One poem, one post, one content, one book, one bar. Take a look. Soon, he retracted his thoughts and smiled at Yu Qianzhen. It's okay, you'll be too busy soon. Yu Qianzhen nodded, with a playful look on his face again. Who's in charge of your farmland? We all farm. Shang Tannen smiled sheepishly, glancing ahead. Wait a minute. We're getting off the main sky train. I need to report back to our Volvo commuter patrol. He turned on the radio and glanced at the person on the screen. Captain Wen, are you on duty again? Oh, Deputy Captain Shang. I came up to take over and saw your Volvo's on the road. I felt like Deputy Captain Yan's driving style was different today. So it turns out that Deputy Captain Shang is driving this car today. Shang Tannen was amused by Wen Qi's words. Wen Qi loved chatting with him. Today is the weekend. I let my brothers go and stretch their legs. Weekends are the most leisurely time anyway, so I came to the duty room to schedule an idle shift for myself, and it's a good deal. Deputy Commander Shang, you are so busy, why do you still go to Shilin for a tour on the weekend? I have an old classmate who came with the 2nd Corps and happened to be assigned to our department. I picked him up today and took him to my home to play. Shang Tannen expanded the range of the car screen and pointed at Yu Qianzhen and said, Captain Wen, this is my old classmate, Yu Qianzhen, a new engineer from the maintenance department of the mechanical management department. Qianzhen, this is Captain Wen Qiwen, the boss of our WoW Defense Zone patrol team. Hello. After the two of them greeted each other, Shang Tannen said again, Captain Wen, I will send my old classmate back to Shilin in the evening, and we will take this route. Okay, I got it. If it gets dark, I will arrange for my brothers to go to camping with you. It won't be too late, Captain Wen. Don't bother the brothers, I am familiar with this road. Okay, I'll contact you later if there is any situation. After finishing his call with Wen Qi, Shang Tannen turned around and said, Qianzhen, when we go out on temporary assignments in the future, we'll usually form a team consisting of operators and security personnel. These brothers are all very serious and responsible people. Yu Qianzhen nodded. Shang Tannen smiled, facing forward, his voice rising unconsciously. Qianzhen, look, my home is up ahead. Chapter 324, Madam is so virtuous. Yu Qianzhen looked closely. A shimmering river ran through the fields. At a gentle bend, a forest clung to the water, and on the other side stood a milky gray house. The sunlight and the water reflected off the landscape, making it both peaceful and radiant. Qianzhen, that's my robot. It's plowing the soil. A small, silver-hued robot straightened up in the field and bowed deeply toward the car from a distance. Tannen, Yu Qianzhen suddenly said hesitantly, your family is busy today. Am I disturbing you too much? Classmate Yan, does she know I'm coming? Of course Feiyu knows. She's at home cleaning up. Shang Tannen said dissatisfiedly. What do you mean by disturbing me, Qianzhen? What are you talking about being polite to each other? As he spoke, his eyes lit up and a smile played on his lips. Feiyu is at the door. After receiving the access control notification from the tree house that her car had flown into her plot of land, Feiyu swiftly slipped down the tree, returned to the South Bank house, walked through the courtyard, past the banquet hall, and walked down the steps, just in time to see her car land. She smiled and looked towards the car door. Feiyu, look who's here, Shang Tannen said loudly, getting out of the car first. She shifted her gaze behind him, at the man wearing the 2nd Legion's new one-piece protective suit. His face was square and vaguely familiar. Classmate Yu, long time no see. How are you? She took 2 steps forward. Shang Tannen had been excited for days after returning home and talking about his old classmate. Feiyu felt that adding a long time to the greeting made it seem more casual and friendly. Classmate Yan, long time no see, I hope you're alright. Yu Qianzhen glanced at Feiyu up and down, then suddenly realized and said hurriedly, no, I should call you sister-in-law now, right, Tannen. He turned to Shang Tannen beside him, smiled a particularly wide smile, and asked, or should we call her as we call her here, Sister Shang, sister-in-law? Feiyu took this opportunity to spontaneously recall more distant memories. She hadn't had much contact with his old classmate from Department C during her time in Donglan. She vaguely remembered him as a warm and, well, talkative person. Also, he graduated and left school a little later than she did. That day, she was packed with boxes, large and small, occupying the corridor and blocking his door. She returned to Mamang and never lived in the old house again. It was a sad day. Xiong Tian'an looked at Yu Qianjun, then at Feiyu, who was smiling softly beside him. Qianjun, I'm a few months younger than you, and Feiyu is younger than you too. Come on, forget about calling each other names, let's go inside first. Classmate Yu, please come in, Feiyu continued. Tian'an has been looking forward to having you as a guest for a long time. Yu Qianjun stared at the two of them. Me too, I'm so happy today. Feiyu led the way, ushering them into the small living room of the main building. Everything was already arranged. All the furniture made of local materials had been removed. Feiyu pressed out 3 chairs, and the exterior wall was made transparent. The large lawn in front of her house was a golden color, looking particularly bright. Classmate Yu, please sit down. She smiled and waited for the guest to sit down, then said with sincere concern, how do you feel along the way? If you feel unwell, please tell us. No, it's very good. Yu Qianjun straightened his back. The scenery along the way is very beautiful. Okay, Feiyu exchanged a few pleasantries and then stood up. Tian'an, you chat with classmate Yu. I'll go see if Xiongyan is back. Okay. Xiong Tian'an knew that Feiyu was going to arrange for Xiongyan to heat up the meal, and hurriedly called out, Feiyu, tell Xiongyan to follow the instructions on the lunchbox. Okay, you guys chat slowly. Feiyu bowed slightly and walked out. Xiong Tian'an smiled and retracted his gaze, but met Yu Qianjun's eyes, and hurriedly said, Qianjun, I'm sorry for the poor hospitality. He pointed to the smooth table and smiled. There are some cakes and candies at home, but they are all local products and not suitable for you. Feiyu was going to put out a few bouquets of flowers to welcome you, but then I thought it would be better not to have flowers. After this period of adaptation, we will be free, and now we have no choice but to entertain you with nothing. Tian'an, that's what you call polite, Yu Qianjun teased, looking around the living room, and said enviously, look at you, you are living like a god now. You have a family and a career. Who is Xiongyan? He can't be your child, right? No, what did you think? Xiong Tian'an's face was slightly hot, and he explained in great detail, Xiongyan is my family's robot. The family name is the surname of the family member as the main code, and the number is the serial number. There's only this one robot in my family now, so Feiyu and I are used to omitting the number. Xiong Yan, Yu Qianjun read and praised, good code name. He leaned back in his chair, his eyes constantly wandering over Xiong Tian'an's face. Tian'an, after so many years, to be honest, you haven't changed, you're still the same as before. Classmate Yan. I almost didn't recognize her. Why, do you think Feixu's appearance has changed? Xiong Tian'an asked curiously. I'm with her every day, but I don't think so. Yu Qianjun looked at Xiong Tian'an and said jokingly after a while, your wife is so virtuous now. Xiong Tian'an was stunned and laughed to himself. I'm not saying that classmate Yan wasn't virtuous before, Yu Qianjun quickly added. I mean, I only saw classmate Yan doing research well before, and I never thought she would be so suitable for family life now. He stopped after saying a few words, showing embarrassment. It seemed inappropriate to talk about his friend's wife. Xiong Tian'an's smile was bright. However, Qianjun, you have changed a little, but not much. The time we spent in the office last time was short, and we didn't communicate well. Today we must have a good chat. How have you been these years? My life is very ordinary, just going to get off work and going home, plus business trips. You know, after graduation, I went to the robot manufacturing company recommended by my mentor. The benefits were good, and I got promoted and got a raise and a days. Later, I didn't want to be limited to the level of production, manufacturing and sales. I wanted to know more about the upstream and downstream. At that time, I wanted to ask you about the development of robots on Gigaxing, but I couldn't contact you. I was worried about you. Who knew that you actually came to Xinxing and married a top student from our department A university, and quietly lived such a wonderful life? How can I be wonderful? Xiong Tian'an laughed and apologized repeatedly. At that time, I received the conscription order. Except for my immediate family members, it was not easy for me to tell anyone. I'm really sorry for suddenly losing contact with you. What's there to be sorry about? Yu Qianjun waved his hand, paused for a moment, and said half-jokingly, Tannen, how about I visit you and classmate Yan's home? Of course, come on, Shang Tannen said, smiling. Feiyu emerged from the kitchen, having finished her arrangements, just as Shang Tannen led Yu Qianjun through the courtyard. The midday sun shone brightly on the pale blue ground, making it appear as if coated with a film of light gold. Chapter 325 Wo's Observations. This is where we process the grain after it's harvested. Qianjun, if you'd come to my house a month ago, you'd have found it incredibly messy. Back then, it was filled with apples drying in the sun, Shang Tannen introduced, leading Yu Qianjun to the kitchen. Feiyu, Qianjun wants to see our home. I'll show him around. It's shabby, don't laugh at me, Feiyu smiled. Not at all. It's so beautiful I'm extremely envious, Yu Qianjun replied. Feiyu, do you need any help? Shang Tannen pointed to the kitchen door and asked with a smile. No, you can accompany classmate Yu, Feiyu said flatly. She and Shang Tannen had agreed on a division of labor yesterday. Today, he would be in charge of picking up and dropping off guests, while Feiyu would be in charge of setting up the table and preparing meals. Yu Qianjun looked at the two of them, and glanced into the half-open kitchen door. He vaguely saw a floral smock in a wicker basket on the corner of the table, with a faint fragrance of smoke. He stood at the foot of the Yunqing stone steps, bowed to Feiyu and said, I'm sorry to bother sister-in-law today. I've made you so busy. I'm not busy, Feiyu smiled and said gently, we are all classmates from Donglan. Tannen and I are very happy to have you here. Don't be so polite. Let Tannen take you around. We'll have dinner soon, Qianjun, don't be polite. Shang Tannen took Yu Qianjun to visit a back row of houses. When they walked into the grain storage room to show him the kinds of luo millet, he smiled and said, Feiyu is not a person who is very polite. She is very down-to-earth. Remember, don't say polite words to us anymore. Yu Qianjun looked at him, and after a while turned his gaze back to the dry grains of luo millet, his tone full of emotion. Tannen, you are so happy. How many old friends will be shocked? Come on, I'll take you to see the backyard again. Shang Tannen smiled and pulled him to the backyard, finding a response. It's not about happiness. You only see what's already there, not Feiyu and I, sitting on the wasteland, building a house bit by bit. Feiyu and I do the same work. It's really hard for her to come here with me. Yu Qianjun slowly walked on a small bridge over the Huangji River, glanced at him, lowered his head to admire the gurgling water, and joked again, where there's hardship, there's joy. This is what it's like to struggle together, Tannen. The two turned around at the sound. Tannen, Feiyu had already confirmed the restaurant's layout and now walked out to the backyard lawn, calling out to them, please invite classmate Yu in for dinner. Yu Qianjun narrowed his eyes. In winter, the grass rose, its petals and leaves shed, leaving only the stems, contrasting with the graceful figure next to her, her face as clear as petals in the sun. Beyond the cyan roofs of the row of houses, on the beautiful cream-gray exterior of the main building, one could see the windows of the second-floor room they hadn't reached just now. They sat leisurely, framed by the radiance of Qiongjek, the guardian star of Luoyang, which brought a refreshing and translucent feeling to one's heart. Coming, Shang Tannen called out, nimbly leaping back onto the bridge from the north bank. Qianjun, let's go eat. Afterward, I'll show you our experimental fields, where new seedlings sprouted a few days ago, and take you on a tour of our WOW service center. The day was a resounding success for both host and guest. Feiyu's reception was grand, utilizing the main building's dining room. Shang Tannen had been nagging Yu Qianjun these days. She knew they were close in the past, but this time, truly, a friend from afar, she thought, ditching the long table for a round one. Even though there weren't any flowers on the table, she had Shang Yan make a large bouquet using the Alliance floral fabric she'd saved. Paired with the classic Alliance dishes from the Shilin Community Cafeteria, 3 plates, 4 bowls, and a soup, they were perfect for comforting a newcomer like Yu Qianjun, who had just arrived in a strange new star. It was dusk. Feiyu, put down your protective shield at home. I'll be back soon, Shang Tannen instructed before getting into the car. Feiyu nodded and turned to Yu Qianjun. Classmate Yu, come visit again next time you're free, okay? I'll be sure. Yu Qianjun bowed and got in with Shang Tannen. The car slowly rose. Through the window, he looked at Feiyu. She smiled and waved softly at the car. The evening breeze from the lush fields blew up the string of bells on the gate behind her, which was cleverly made of discarded robot parts. The crisp sound that had just been sandwiched between the voices at the door could make people echo in their hearts. The hems of the skirts made of brightly colored patterned linen, which were common among the women of the First Legion, also fluttered in the evening breeze. The merchant's house receded into the twilight. Tenon, Yu Qianchen looked at the vast gray fields and leaned back in his chair. You two have been very busy today. Again, Shang Tannen turned his head and glared at him. You and I can skip all this. Today's dishes are just barely to your taste. They are familiar flavors. If you had a meal with others in Shilin on the weekend, the taste would be the same. It's delicious enough. We are busy with training and dividing the work now. How can we have the time to treat each other to meals? We can only make do with the daily nutritional supplements. Today you have greatly improved my food, Yu Qianchen said. Then after you have passed the adaptation period, Shang Tannen said happily, I will let you try the banquet dishes provided by the WoW Service Center, which are all local. Usually, when you two have something to celebrate or something, do you also go to eat the banquet dishes of other people's service centers? Yu Qianchen looked at Shang Tannen with an inquiring look. That talented wife of yours was a student of our Class A back then. Did she cook for you personally, Feiyu? Shang Tannen raised the corner of his lips. When the house was just built, she tried the kitchen. We are busy with work, and usually we only take nutritional supplements. Yu Qianchen listened, and after a while, he nodded his chin and teased, when we were in Donglan, I really didn't expect that you two would get together. Hey, tell me honestly, how did you two start? Shang Tannen was suddenly embarrassed. Oh, Feiyu and I are both from Mamen, that's it. I haven't heard you mention that classmate Yen is also from your hometown before. Yu Qianchen chuckled, and after a moment, he raised his eyebrows and glanced over. What's the matter with that, Qianchen? Stop joking. Be careful when you get married, or I'll laugh at you too. Shang Tannen clicked on the car control screen. We've arrived at the main WoW SkyTrain route. I'll report to the patrol first. At 8 o'clock that evening, Yu Qianchen returned to the Qingayan community in Shilin Highlands. He opened the fence and stood at the door of the dome. He paused, looking up at the moons in the sky. Moonlight poured into the courtyard, sneaking into the house through the crack of the open door before him. Back, his roommate noticed a movement. These small rooms, once family homes for the first batch of conscripted couples, were now converted into double dormitories. He also learned today that Shang Tannen and Feiyu lived in Dome Number 1, Group 13, in this community 3 years ago. Did you have a good time? How is the place? His roommate asked enviously from inside. Okay. I'll lock the door first. Yu Qianchen didn't want to go in yet. He stood in the courtyard for a moment, gazing at the moon and thinking about the years it had illuminated this place. Pursing his lips, he walked back inside. The promotional video for the new planet had been circulating throughout the Alliance since the recruitment period. In his hometown, at Camp Koraki, it played like a constant companion. He was used to taking a look at it whenever he had nothing else to do. But not tonight, as his roommates eagerly awaited his WoW travelogue. End of this chapter. Thank you very much for reaching the end. Don't forget to like. Looking for more exclusive content and immediate access? Subscribe to our Patreon. Remember, every like, subscription, or donation encourages us to continue. Thanks to everyone. See you in the next video.